Hello, everyone. Michael Jordan fans are the best. And today we're going to be talking about who is most responsible for Michael Jordan's success. First, welcome back. Welcome back. NMB Sports Nick. How are you doing today?
Doing good, doing good. Glad to be here.
Awesome. And welcome back, Sports and Fitness Rants. Robin, how you doing today?
Yo, what's up, everybody out there, man? It's great to be back. Let's do it again, baby.
Yep. I love that rock t-shirt, by the way.
Yeah.
um, So yeah, Nick, we'll start with you first. We should be expecting Hoop God in the near term, and then yeah. So Nick, who do you think is most responsible for Michael Jordan's success?
So obviously Michael Jordan, right? But if we're gonna go outside of Michael Jordan, right? I was thinking about this question, and so I was trying to say, do I pick like a moment, a person? Like what do like I pick to think that motivated Jordan the most? And if I kind of went back to the Batman origin stories logic, right? And I think getting cut from his grade school team the first time he tried out and got cut, from everything I remember and reading about that, like it broke his heart, right? As a kid, like he couldn't believe it. I remember hearing he took it really hard, right? And then from there, obviously his brother was another big influence. But if I had to pick one thing, right, I would go with him getting cut from his grade school team. That was the Batman origin story where he was like, all right, like no more of this. I don't like this feeling, and I'm gonna do what I can to be better. So I would pick that. I'd probably put his brother second. Those very young, formidable years when you're being molded, and from what I know, his brother was really tough on him. So obviously that had to play some kind of role. So that'd be like my 1A, 1B kind of quick answer to that.
All right, Robin, what do you think about? Oh, Uncommon Sense is here. Couldn't get to stream to my channel, but I'm here. Well, welcome. Can you? Does the link let you come in, or do I need to send you another link? You know what? Here, I'll just drop it in here. Uh, I'm just accepting, just Uncommon Sense at this point, but everyone will be able to or are welcome to call in later on. But yeah, just click the link there. Um, yeah, Robin, what do you have to say about Nick's takes on the high school cut and his brother?
Yeah, Nick was on the money, man. I was actually surprised that Nick came out and gave Michael Jordan his props off the jump by saying, yes, everyone knows it's Michael Jordan himself who is the most responsible for his success, because it was ultimately Michael Jordan himself who had to take all the things that he learned from all these people that influenced his life and do something with this. There's many people who have been helped along the ways and been successful in their careers, but no, not many people could do what Michael Jordan to that level, right? So absolutely, I think Michael Jordan is most key, right, to his, success, how far he reached, right? His determination, all those things. But I think Nick, what he said about his brother, to me, I would probably say his brother would be the number one person, I would say, the factor driving behind Michael Jordan, because his brother, I'll say it like this. I'm an older brother of four boys, right? And one of my younger brothers actually tried out for the NFL. He was actually cut by the Buffalo Bills some years back or whatever. But I remember every single day him going against me, whether it was football or basketball, going at each other. And I never let them beat me. It was never one of those things I was like, oh, I'll let them beat me because they're my younger brother. I feel bad for them. I'll let them win. It was never like that. I would never allow that to happen. You were going to have to earn the victory over me. You were going to have to actually beat me so that you can earn those bragging rights over me. I wasn't going to let it happen. So when we think of those things and the way that Michael Jordan's brother was, like, if you know the history of that, he wasn't letting Michael Jordan beat him. And what did he say? One day it became that I could not beat him any longer. Everything caught up, his determination, his athleticism, his God-given genetics, these kinds of things that Michael Jordan had going for him. All of those things helped him become who he was. Yeah, we could talk about Phil Jackson. We could talk about Coach Dean Smith at North Carolina. These are all people that influenced Michael Jordan and helped him throughout his career, right? The Scottie Pippens, right? All of these things came into play. I see people in the chat mention Michael Jordan's parents. Obviously, Michael Jordan's parents have a huge impact on his life because they were there, right? They weren't, not around. they were people who raised him to be a certain way. So absolutely, his parents also deserve a lot of credit, man. But yeah, I would probably say maybe like his brother would be someone that people don't really think about, but I think that had a big thing to do with his competitive fire.
Welcome, Uncommon Sense. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How's everybody?
Yo, what up, man?
You're good. What do you think about Nick's take, NMB Sports take about his brother and the moment and what Robin has said, and when he got cut from his high school basketball team, how do you think that affected his success?
I mean, I think it affected his. Well, let me start with whoever said in the comments his parents. I really feel like it starts there, because your parents teach you how to handle certain situations. And I feel like Michael Jordan's parents taught him the value of overcoming the obstacles. So when he got cut, obviously is Michael Jordan too himself, because I feel like it's half half nature and nurture. So I feel like Michael Jordan's personality, along with his parents, teaching him that, hey, you overcome obstacles. You get cut from your team, then what you do is come back better the next year and overcome that. And then so from there, I mean, I agree with what everybody was saying. I feel like every step along the way, because he had that mentality of overcome, then everyone who presented a challenge to him, the only way he knew to deal with it was to try to find a way to overcome. So whether that be Dean Smith or whoever challenged him throughout the rest of his career.
Yeah, and for me, for what all you guys are saying, but just to start off with what Nick was saying first, for me, like all the things that we're saying have something to do with it, right? You can't really say that it's just one thing other than his just internal drive himself to actually do this. But these other external motivating factors, yeah, they all apply. And especially with the parents aspect of it. But to bring it back to the grade school thing, I think that, I think that probably had to do maybe a lot with maybe negative reinforcement, maybe from his brother or maybe his parents. I don't know if it's the case. I'm not saying that was the case, but maybe something negative had to push him because that negative thing happened. You know what I mean? I don't think it was just, or that's generally how people, at least in my opinion and experience, if somebody loses, usually it's some sort of other negative factor that helps drive them forward. So I don't know where it came from. It might have just been internal, like you're not good enough to yourself. That might be the point of what you're saying. But I think that is one of the things that started getting him going, because even when he got to UNC, James Worthy has famously said that I was better for Michael Jordan than a week. And then he just got better than me. So I think he just constantly had these things pushing him forward. And then his brother, I'm an older brother as well. So I don't know what it's like I'm the oldest brother as well. So I don't know what it's like to be the little brother, like what Robin is saying. But just to the point of it all is, yeah, that's definitely a motivating factor. But yeah, with the parents as well, I mean, that's a huge deal as well. You got to have strong parents to help instill values and morals and success and drive and etc. So, you know what I mean? I totally agree with that.
Yeah, and I have a funny story about my dad. Unfortunately, I didn't have any brothers, but my dad was in a bit of the tough love category. And obviously we played a lot of basketball, right? And I'll never forget, it was like 7th, 8th grade. I'd never beaten him, right? And I finally beat him one-on-one, and he never played me again. He was just like, I have nothing, it's like kind of that big brother, like, I've shown you everything I can, like, now you got to go from here, right? I'll never forget that. As soon as I beat him, it was just, I'd finally taken over, and he was just like, never played me again. I always hated that, right? I wanted to get my licks in. And as soon as he realized I was better than him, he was like, all right, we're good. I'm going to take my 205-1 record against you and just hold on to that. So
205. I like that. He was counting
whatever it was. was. You know what I mean?
The Bill
Yeah,
Bill
that reminds
Gold-
me of that older brother, tough love that y'all are talking about. It's pretty funny.
You was like my man, the Count of Monte Cristo with the slashes when he was in the lockup, man. Knocking those
Yeah,
lids off.
counting the days. That's right. Never got my revenge.
Robin, do you have a personal story you want to share? I know you were talking about your younger brother with the Bills, but do you have something where you had a driving force to want to do better in things that you want to share?
Well, for me, growing up, sports was kind of like something that, my parents pushed me into. When we talk about football, for example, like for me, my story for football was a little bit different because I got into it later than my brothers did, because we came from the city that there really was no Pop Warner when I was growing up. We just played Little League. But when we started playing, I didn't even want to play football any longer. And it was my mother who told me to keep playing. So when we talk about the parents, they mentioned Michael Jordan's parents, and, we were talking about these things. My mother pushing me to play football, right? When I wanted to basically stop playing, I was a little scared to play football when I first got out there. I didn't want to tackle anybody, things like that. And then all of a sudden, that became the sport that I was known for. So, like I said, my brother ended up trying out for the Buffalo Bills, and I still to this day believe my brother should have made the league. But when we think about these things, it was my mother having that influence. Like I said, my parents watching my father playing basketball in the streets, growing up, him always bringing us there with him. So I think all those things that we talked about influence children and how they feel about sports, and like I said, learning, the value of sportsmanship, these kinds of things, because it all goes back to those kinds of values, man, playing the game the right way and understanding the value of hard work, and earning that respect,
Welcome, Hoop God.
Hoop God's in the house.
Hey, good afternoon, gentlemen.
How you doing
Damn,
today?
dude, you coming through loud and clear.
You doing all right?
Yeah, man. It's daylight saving time, man. It got me just scrambling right now. I'm still trying to get caught up.
Daylight got him.
Yeah, man. Everything good y'all way?
Oh yeah, everything's good.
Indeed.
I had one more thing as I was thinking about this. I wanted to bring up. You guys ever seen the movie Rounders?
Yeah.
He talks about the famous quote in the beginning from Amarillo Slim, right? And he says he's like something along the lines like, surprisingly, many players don't remember the big pots they have won, but they can with alarming accuracy tell you the big pots they have lost, right? And so that's why I think that's very true, right? Like there's sort of like this two-edged sword with losing that I think people don't really give losing like its proper due in a way. That like losing can shape you, I think, more than winning, right? And my old boss used to tell me something I thought about, and that was, let's say you have a plan, you go out and you execute it, right? Or you win. Was it really the plan, or was it your opponent, or what, right? But when you go out with a plan and you lose, right, you learn something about yourself, or you understand you're not as good as you thought you were, or your plan was not as foolproof as you thought it was, right? And so I just remember that's why I picked him losing, right? It's kind of one of those, I'm sure that like him getting cut, right, had to just eat at him. And it probably stuck in his head until he maybe left high school altogether or something, right? So I was just thinking that was my last little piece about why I picked him getting cut. I'm sure, losing sometimes it everyone remembers their big losses. I agree, more than winning, right? Sometimes winning is boring in a way, right? If you do it enough or if you work hard enough. And when you lose, right, it's almost like it wakes you up in a way, or it kicks something in you sometimes, right? It's sort of like that two-edged sword I talked about. So that was just the last thing I was going to say is I think losing sometimes plays a bigger factor actually at the end of the day than winning, right? We remember winning for legacy, but I think it is really losing that sort of defines kind of who you are, which is also why I think the Celtics and the Pistons can be mentioned for maybe ultimately getting Jordan over that final hump to greatness, right? That last little, what is it like to be a champion in the NBA? You could give them a lot of credit for that too, right? That he got against those guys and he said, okay, there's even one more level after everything even I've achieved up to this point. There's still one more level to go, right? So that's why I picked the Batman origin stories. That's kind of why I think him getting cut is probably the genesis of a lot of that attitude.
Uncommon Sense, what do you have to say about Nick's idea of losing and how it drives you, how it's a double-edged sword, that you remember that more, and yeah, everything else.
I totally agree with that. I believe that uh, in a way, human existence is defined by the hardships we go through, and not by the good things we go through. And it's how you deal with those hardships that actually make you. So I feel like you know, a person, anybody who's going through hardships and are able to overcome that, then you have a new level of, well, number one, self-awareness of what you're capable of, and confidence. And I think, kind of what Nick was saying is like Jordan's having to overcome that early failure, really kind of showed him who he was, showed him he had the ability to overcome those things, and probably gave him a new confidence moving forward. Because I feel like if you just listen to Michael Jordan talk, well, I mean, even the famous commercial about I failed so many times and that's why I succeed, I feel like at some point you realize that there is no success without the failure.
All right, Hoop God, what's your take on all that? Hoop God, you might be on mute if you're.
Oh yeah, my bad. Say that again, Dark.
What's your take on the losing drives you forward, particularly amongst what everyone else was saying?
Yeah, so when you look at it, like I would even utilize myself in that matter. Like I really hate to lose, but it's like when you're so competitive, it drives you to improve. And I know, like when I started playing basketball, hey, I couldn't go left. Hey, push him left. Guess what? Got better with my left hand. Then once I got better with my left hand, hey man, he can't shoot. So they back up off of me. I had to improve my jump shot. So, just looking at Michael Jordan's taking those incremental steps all the way back, like I would even go back from his childhood, because him and his brother Larry Jordan, like he said it on numerous occasions. He was like, I feel like if I could beat my brother, I could beat anybody. Like they would have knockdown, drag out one-on-one games in the backyard. And that's where that competitive nature starts. Of course, he gets to high school, he gets cut. But it's funny because, not to digress, Bill Russell got cut from his varsity team. He made the JV team, just like Jordan made the JV team, but they both got cut their sophomore year. Ironically, look how they turned out. But yeah, the losing, I think when you're a competitor, it does something to you internally that makes you want to improve on every aspect of your physical nature. It makes you mentally stronger, but it also says, okay, I'm losing here, so I got to get better. Prime example, when Michael Jordan was going up against the Pistons, what did he say? They just kept knocking him down. They were able to inflict punishment onto him. So he gets with Tim Grover, he gets in the weight room. He's like, nah, I want to start delivering the punishment, and in concert with his phenomenal skill set. So ultimately he builds up and they sweep them. And then he goes on and accomplishes 2 3-peats. So yes, I feel like losing when you're a competitor, it does something to you that makes you want to just. It's almost like an obsession. Like you get obsessed with like, nah, I gotta get better here. I got to improve on this because, you it's like you don't want to give any opponent any type of leverage over you. So I feel like when you improve on things that you're not as strong in, and then you get better, you keep on training and you improve, it's like now it's like you're limiting what an opponent can do to have an advantage on you. So in summary, it's just like that losing it drives a competitor insane. That's the best way I could articulate that.
So yeah, for what you're saying, yeah, I think losing in one capacity or another, if it's sports or if it's life or if you've just lived hard growing up or anything like that. Robin had brought up one of my favorite movies, The Count of Monte Cristo, and that I think is a perfect, well, for one, totality revenge movie, but also how you can make the most out of a bad situation you're in and try to get out of it. And that's the reason why it's one of my favorite movies. He was unjustly imprisoned, for the people that don't know the plot. essentially becomes educated in prison by an educated man and a warrior, and then essentially comes out and is the richest man in the world and gets everything he ever wants. But he put the work in is the point of the story. He didn't just give up. He gave up in times because it's a movie and, you know, whatever, you have to have struggle. But the point is that when you lose, you have to have the determination to come out and win, whether it be in sports and life, etc. And I'm not trying to get into the life aspect of it. But yeah, I totally agree with everyone's concept that losing definitely drives winning. But you have to have the heart to do it, because some people will just lose and quit. And I think that's the catalyst of what makes a great man, a great person in general, is the heart, the vigor, the will to win in the future, even though you've been down. Uncommon sense. I know I was talking about this with Robin a little bit, but I want to hear your take on how, even though Michael Jordan was the man when he came onto the team, how much credit do you give Phil Jackson in respect for the championships won on the Chicago Bulls? And I'm not saying that Michael Jordan wasn't the man before then, but how much did Phil Jackson impact Michael Jordan's success, particularly with winning NBA championships?
You know, that's something I always wonder about, because like the way I've always felt about coaches in general, and I'm not trying to take anything away from coaches and strategy and whatnot, but I always feel like a coach's real job is to get the team to buy fully into whatever strategy you know they're trying to run. And so, you know, I give Phil Jackson a lot of credit for being to truly manage personality. So in that sense, you know, I give him quite a bit of credit. But at the same time, I feel like, you know, if it's not Michael Jordan he's coaching, they don't have these 6 championships. You know, I feel like it could have been another player in Michael Jordan's place from that era, Clyde Drexler or somebody, and you're not looking at 6 championships. So I feel like ultimately Michael Jordan is still the guy who should receive most of the credit for those championships. And, you know, going back to Phil, after the Bulls, he inherits Kobe Bryant, who is the closest thing to Mike. So, I mean, I give Phil a lot of credit, but like I said, my perspective on coaches is that they're more or less there to get the team on one accord. And I think Phil Jackson is definitely a master at that and managing those different personalities. But I mean, if you look at the pattern of Chicago, even before Phil, I feel like they were definitively getting better and better each year. So, you know, the question is, that year that Phil Jackson came in, you know, I think the Bulls had taken the Pistons like 4 games, 5 games, 6 games or something, or maybe it was 5, 6, and 7. But at that point, you know, I'm wondering, would Doug Collins have had that breakthrough if Phil Collins hadn't intercepted it, so to speak. But yeah.
All right. Hoop God, what's your take on Phil Jackson's influence over Michael Jordan's championship success?
Yeah, so to echo what Uncommon Sense was saying, Phil did play an important role. However, how I'm looking at it as a great coach like Popovich or Larry Brown or Coach K, Pat Riley, you do have to get that your best player to buy into the system, but you also have to get your best player to augment their teammates. And what I mean by that is, as talented as Michael Jordan was, he's not going to beat the Pistons by himself. So initially, you know, everybody knows that when Tex Winters, the inventor of the triangle, not Phil Jackson for y'all in the comments, Phil Jackson implemented the triangle, and Jordan initially was resistant. Now, the fact that Jordan had that background at UNC playing with Dean Smith, see, that was an advantage that he had, because he's already played with good to great players down in that program. So when Jordan finally bought into the system, that's when they started to take off even more. Because, like Uncommon Sense said, yeah, they were taking the Pistons 5 games, 6 games. I mean, hell, Isaiah Thomas is on record of saying he was at Lake Michigan crying for 8 hours trying to figure out how to stop 23 in red. So I think once Jordan was like, okay, I'm gonna buy into this system. Hey, let's right this ship. Let's go. I really feel like they would have beat him in 1990 if Pippen hadn't caught the migraine, because when I go back and I look at that series, not only did they not have an answer for Jordan, but Pippen had elevated his game where now they couldn't double and triple team Jordan, and Jordan was moving the ball quickly because now he trusted Scotty, because Scotty had gotten up to that level. And when they played them in 91, it was just like, it was a massacre at that point, because Jordan, due to Phil Jackson, as well, I give him his credit, he was moving the ball so precisely. It was like 1001, 1002. It was either driving to the basket, shooting, or making a play for somebody else. And where I do give Phil credit for that is because I don't think Jordan initially was seeing that under Doug Collins, because he made a quote, which is kind of, I don't know how to categorize it, but y'all know what I'm talking about. He was like, hey, the play was just get the ball to Michael, everybody else get the hell out of the way. Yeah, that's great, but that can't always be your go-to plan, because a team is going to be scheming for that in the next subsequent games. Now, what Phil had MJ understand is, yeah, there's times where you can take over, but there's also times that you can create a play for your teammate to get a better shot, i.e. playmaking, because I know some of these guys out here in this other universe, they think playmaking is just assists. But I would give Phil Jackson his appropriate credit for getting Jordan to buy into the team concept, and then ultimately still displaying his phenomenal style of play, but also lifting his team up to prominence as well.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add something, and Tex Winter deserves a lot of the credit for the triangle offense, but he didn't actually invent it. It was a guy named Sam Barry, but he is definitely the most famous for it. Nick, what's your take on the Phil Jackson and his influence on the success of Michael Jordan's championships?
Yeah, so I've coached a little bit up to about junior high level, which I know is not that high or competitive or anything. But yeah, like Uncommon Sense was saying, a coach's main job is, yes, to get players to buy in and know what we're trying to execute, right? Second thing is to adjust. If you're losing, if it's not working, you have to have something else ready to go. And the third thing essentially is in spots, there are times when, like an out of bounds play or something, that a coach can have the opportunity to leave his fingerprints on a game, a good play here or a wrinkle there, but that's maybe a couple times a game out of a timeout or something like that, right? At the end of the day, like, the players are the ones executing the X's and O's. You can draw up the best play, but if you don't have the guys to execute it, it doesn't really matter. And so, yes, I don't know if Rex ever had the coaching debate. I think he was supposed to have one about how influential our coach is. I'd probably be on the opposite side of Rex on that one. They kind of have an overall arc on the team, but they don't, in my opinion, I think if I compare myself to the average fan, I may be a little below on how important coaches are. In spots, they are important for morale. I think they are important, but after that, man, you have to have the horses to execute, or, you can, like I said, you can drop the greatest play and strategy in the world. If the players don't execute it, if you don't have a Tom Brady, right, throwing the actual passes and reading the defense, it doesn't really matter. So, Phil's a great coach. I think he was like a good yin and yang guy. I think, how intense players are. I think Phil's kind of chill vibe, a lot of the times, I think players may have liked that. I think he's more of a players guy, right? But I don't know. I don't put too much emphasis on the coach overall. I think maybe they can be that last puzzle piece at times, but I think that's few and far between. I think a good coach really is there for morale these days when we're talking about the pros, right? So But yeah, that's my 2 cents on Phil's role.
All right, Robin, what's your take?
Yeah, everybody said a bunch of great things right here, man, because, the main thing that I feel like when I hear about Phil Jackson, or whenever Phil Jackson's really brought up, it's the same thing with Scottie Pippen. They're not bringing up Phil Jackson to big up Phil Jackson. They're being disingenuous. They're trying to give Phil Jackson more credit than he deserves to take away from Michael Jordan's greatness. It's the classic scenario that we've been dealing with here. They have to tear down Michael Jordan by lifting up Phil Jackson, by lifting up Scottie Pippen. So now when we talk about Phil Jackson, it almost comes across that we're trying to disrespect Phil Jackson, or that we don't believe he's a great coach. And you hear the people
absolutely
say,
not.
oh,
Yeah.
you're a hater, things of that nature. But that's never the case what we're doing right here. What we're doing is we're putting things into perspective here, right? The reality is Phil Jackson got all the accolades that he deserved when he coached. The irony is behind a lot of these things is Phil Jackson was coach of the year one time in the NBA's history. Now, we're not saying that coach of the year awards matter in the grand scheme of overall, that makes you a great coach. And now because Mike Brown has 2 and Phil Jackson has 1. So we're going to argue that Mike Brown's a greater coach than Phil Jackson? No, we're not going to have that argument. But the point here is the reason why Phil Jackson was never voted as a coach of the year all those years when he was on the Chicago Bulls is why? Because he was not doing more with less. The Bulls were a great team. You were led by the greatest player of the era that you were coaching in. So there were other coaches doing more with less. They didn't have as much talent as Phil Jackson had around him, but yet still they were coaching their teams to perennial 50, 60-win seasons. We think about the George Karls, the Jerry Sloans, right, the Lenny Wilkins, some of the other great coaches that we watched in the 80s and the 90s that were having quality teams consecutively. Another thing that we talked about here that was always, mentioned, you talked about, it was the trajectory of the Chicago Bulls when Phil Jackson came in. I can't stress this enough. This is not as if Phil Jackson came into the NBA on the Chicago Bulls coaching them and they were floundering around in mediocrity. 30-win seasons. They weren't making the playoffs every year. Michael Jordan was just scoring a lot of points, but the Bulls weren't really doing anything. The Bulls in 1989, that was one of the greatest playoff runs in the history of the NBA, man. People do not realize that 1989 run. These men, the Chicago Bulls, they were the underdog in every single series that they played during that playoff run. They had to beat the number 3 seeded Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round with Michael Jordan hitting the shot with 3 seconds to go when everyone picked them to lose that series as underdogs. Then they had to go and beat the number 2 seeded New York Knicks in the semifinals. So they beat that team, and Michael Jordan was destroying the Knicks in that series. Then they go into the Eastern Conference Finals to play the 1989 Detroit Pistons, who had not lost a single game during the postseason leading up to that series. The Bulls would take a 2-1 lead behind the greatness of Michael Jordan, who I believe scored had 7 different games, I believe, of 40 or more points during that entire playoff run. It's crazy when people talk about LeBron James's 2007 run to the NBA Finals. You go look at the details behind Michael Jordan's 1989 playoff run with the Chicago Bulls, the teams that they beat, the quality opponents that they beat during that run in 1989. There are people to this day who consider the Detroit Pistons in 89 one of the greatest teams of all time. And those are the only 2 games they lost during the entire postseason. They were going to win the finals and beat the Lakers in 4 games to nothing. So when you look at the trajectory of the Bulls when Phil Jackson came in, man, there's no way that you can try to say that the Bulls or Michael Jordan was not going to break through and win a championship. Doug Collins was never given the opportunity to see it all the way through. They were ascending into that realm where I believe they would have won a championship. Now, we can have an argument. Are they going to win 2 3-peats or have 6 championships in 8 years? We don't know, but we also don't know if Michael Jordan retires in 1993 and all these other things. But I absolutely believe Phil Jackson was important to the Bulls, but not the way that people try to make it seem. It's always, Michael Jordan had Phil Jackson. No, Phil Jackson had Michael Jordan.
Hey, Robin, you said Phil was only coach of the year one time?
One time. That's right, 1996.
Yo, I did not know that. I got to put that in the archives. Good looking out.
That's why I'm here, to educate and set the record straight, man. People be out there trying to talk some nonsense, man.
It would be what we should have done or get some kind of poll. It'd be interesting to break this up into a pie chart. And besides Michael Jordan himself, we should have said how much is each thing responsible. It'd been funny or interesting to see what each person's
percentages. Yeah. How much credit you give Phil, how much you give Scotty, how much you give Bill Winnington and all these guys.
That would be interesting, up to 10 things.
Yeah, so real fast, there's a lot of people saying they want to call in and cook people or just want to hang out.
It's my public. It's so funny. I see them attacking me in the comments. Some weirdo, Jason the Kid. It's always the people that when you go to their channel, they have no videos on their channel, but yet and still they keep telling me I have no knowledge of the NBA. My channel is over 1,000 videos deep, man, and I break it down, man. Anyone that's watched my videos understands, man. I know what I'm talking about. I grew up watching this stuff, man. I'm not here with no agendas and narratives. Jason the Kid can say whatever he wants about making easy work. These guys are clowns. They're not on our level, man. Put a video up, man. Tag me in the video. Put your face on camera. Show me what you got, man. You're not ready for it.
Aaron Adams, I know you're in the backstage, but we're not accepting calls right now, but we should be in about half an hour or so. So if you want to hang out backstage, you could be first in the shoot, but I'm not going to let you on the panel right now. But yeah, I want to talk about the Phil Jackson thing. I do think he deserves a lot of credit, but to what all you guys are saying, you can be the best coach in the world, but if you don't have the tools to make it happen, let alone the greatest player of all time, in my opinion, then, it's not going to happen. So I'm not going to reiterate all the things that you guys said. I think Phil Jackson does deserve, I think Uncommon Sense brought it up first, was the people management. I think that's probably what he best was, especially with personalities like Dennis Rodman on the second half of the three-peat, let alone going into the Shaq and Kobe days for an external reference of how he was able to manage personalities, even though it went away, even though Shaq eventually left because he wasn't getting paid enough.
Phil's greatest achievement is managing egos. That's his greatest trait. I couldn't even imagine dealing with Jordan, Pippen, Rodman, Shaq, Kobe. That's his greatest achievement. It's a remarkable one for NBA millionaire egos. The way he managed them, the way he did, in my opinion, that's his greatest accomplishment, is how he managed guys like the Zen Master. That's why I call him that, right? Guys loved him. They listened to him. They bought in. That's his greatest achievement, especially the three-peat with Kobe and Shaq. I mean, that behind the scenes must have been.
That's where he was really Zen. With the Lakers, is where he really became the full-blown Zen, dealing with some of these guys, like you said, because there was friction there. Well, obviously, we know now with Shaquille O'Neal and a Kobe Bryant. See, that was the thing with Michael Jordan. It allowed Phil Jackson to never have to be the bad guy, so to speak, as a coach, because Michael Jordan was the bad guy. He was the guy who was the enforcer on the Bulls. Who were they afraid of? They were afraid of Michael Jordan on the Bulls. They weren't afraid of Phil Jackson, man.
Yeah.
Who went to Vegas to get Dennis Rodman? Not Phil Jackson. It was Michael Jordan who went and got him.
What's your take on that, on Common Sense? You had with Phil Jackson, with the Kobe and Shaq, and just the enforcer. Do you think that Michael Jordan was the enforcer?
Absolutely. And I think, I would say, in order to even be in that role, though, as the enforcer like Michael Jordan was, people have to respect you, and they're only going to respect you if like Michael Jordan said on The Last Dance, I never asked them to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. Yep. And I feel like once people see that, then you'll gain the respect, because otherwise, no one's going to take anything from someone who's just talking but not doing what they're talking about. So I absolutely think Michael Jordan was the enforcer and was the person that people feared, even coming out of some of his teammates' own mouths. And then with the, again, to reiterate what you were saying about Phil Jackson being the Zen master, I definitely think he gets a lot of credit for that, just simply for the fact that he really knew how to handle each person differently. Even when you think about when Rodman came to the Bulls, he made Rodman go apologize to Pippen immediately. So it's like knowing how to what it's going to take to make certain players work together. And then obviously the Kobe and Shaq thing was huge friction behind the scenes. And, I heard Phil Jackson just talking about how he coached some of those players individually, and one player he would coach or, coach totally, completely different than he would the other player. He coached Kobe and Shaq two totally separate, different ways. Shaq coming from more of a military background, so Phil Jackson, could be more stern with Shaq, but Kobe wasn't. So, Phil Jackson tended to not criticize Kobe a lot because he didn't want to stifle Kobe's progress. So again, like you said, I give Phil Jackson a whole lot of credit for knowing how to manage individual personalities and manage everyone differently from the next person.
Hoop God, do you have anything to add to that? And who do you, because you haven't put your take on this, who do you think outside of Michael Jordan? You may have missed somebody, so I'll interrupt you if you cover somebody that we've talked about. And who do you think is most responsible for Michael Jordan's success?
Yeah, so echoing what Common Sense said about like who was the enforcer per se and things of that nature, and how he dealt with how he dealt with Kobe and Shaq with the Lakers, right? That was a part of the question too.
Yeah, that was the first two-part question.
So it's funny because I remember like a while back, this is before I even started getting in depth on all the basketball things. I just kind of stumbled upon this when they were having it was on YouTube. I can't remember who produced it, but how Phil was able to manage the Shaq and Kobe is when he first got there, he said, "Hey, let me tell y'all something. We're going to play under my system and we're going to play the correct way, or you both can go to that door." Like he just basically gave him an ultimatum, like not, coming off like, hey, I'm like yada, yada, yada. But you know how Phil is in that calm, cool demeanor, just like, hey, we can either do it this way or the two of you can hit the door. So I'll give Phil his credit for that, because much like Uncommon Sense said, yes, Shaq did come from a military background. But what I like about that scenario is that, see, Kobe grew up with a patriarchal figure in the home too, Joe Jelly Bean Bryant. So, you can coach those guys a little bit more rougher, because they can take that, versus some of the other guys I'm not going to name from Akron, Ohio. But the thing I would say with MJ and Phil, I look at that more so like Phil was the general, MJ was the captain, Pippen was the lieutenant. There was a hierarchy there. And if you look at it, Jordan never tried to, he never tried to usurp Phil's authority, much like Pippen never tried to usurp Michael Jordan's authority. And when you have that hierarchy in place, I feel like it sets a precedent, because like Uncommon Sense said, Jordan never went out there and told those guys to do anything that he would not do, because that's leadership. I'm not going to say, hey, you be at the gym, you be here at practice at 6 o'clock and I come rolling in at 6:45. Nah, if I tell you to be here at 6, I need to be there at 5:30. That's how you establish that precedent and you lay out that foundation for your troops ultimately to follow. And I believe Phil, he didn't have to instill as much of that into Jordan, because Jordan already had that type of work ethic. It was more so getting Jordan to accept the team concept and trust his teammates to be able to deliver in those moments of adversity. And that's one thing I'll really give Jordan the credit, because Phil would purposely stack those teams where Jordan would have like the lesser tier of the players, like the 15th, 13th, 14th, 12th, 11th, 10th man on the bench. And then Pip would have all the other guys, like the main rotational players. So Jordan going out there executing with those guys and winning in practice. Okay, cool. Because when you get in here in game time and it is you're in the moment and you're ready to go, it's like you've practiced those habits to be able to deliver. So I believe like the mind games that Phil would play, they were necessary. And I wanted to say this too, because I forgot on my initial point we were speaking on. Phil would challenge Michael Jordan, but he would do it in an indirect way. He'd be like, hey, Mike, they're saying you don't pass the ball. You can't, you're not a good playmaker. How you feel about that? And this is before they played the Lakers. And Michael Jordan averaged damn near 11 and a half assists that series. But Phil had to kind of remind him, because there was a segment there when they were in a timeout. And Phil was like, he was trying to, because Mike was like so ultra competitive. He was like, Mike, who's open? He's like, John. He's like, okay, get him the ball. And I'm telling you guys right now, I do not believe John Paxson missed not one mid-range shot in that series. Because when Jordan was either driving the lane or collapsing the defense, I mean, he was like wide open. And I mean, Paxson was like an assassin. He was just bucket. But then, of course, y'all know the whole story about Clyde Drexler, right? So Phil says, hey, Michael, they're saying you can't shoot the ball. What you think about that? Like, okay, we'll see about that. So he came out there, he lit him up for 6 threes in the first half. One thing I'll give MJ credit for, he never tried to buy into the whole like 3-point shooting, because I remember in that interview, I went back and watched it. He was like, the 3-point is nice, but guess what? When you hit one, you want to hit another one. You want to hit another one. He said it takes away from your aggression. Now I don't believe Phil really had anything to do with that per se, because that was just who Mike was. He was an aggressive type player. He wanted to get to the basket or get into that intermediate area so he could rise up and shoot. But what I would say about Phil is that in their first, I would say in that first year, I think that's when he ultimately won over Michael Jordan with his philosophies and Zen Master and all that other stuff. But on the same token, Phil had to approach Pippen in another way, because I think he understood how sensitive Pippen was, and how he had to cater to him.
Oopgod, I'm not meaning to interrupt, but are you saying that it was Phil that was one of the most important, or were you going back to just talking about Phil?
No. I mean, I'm giving MJ his credit. I was just kind of looking at how when Uncommon Sense broke down the dynamic that Phil had with Kobe and Shaq, but ultimately, how he couldn't coach Pippen the same way he coached Mike. That's what I was really getting to.
Okay.
Yeah, real quick, if I can, not to tell another childhood story, but my dad coach. Oh, good.
No, I was gonna say, Hoopgod, did you have somebody, or did you think that somebody had more or would you give somebody credit for his success other than Phil Jackson, Michael Jordan, his parents, his brother, or losing his varsity spot or not getting it?
You said, would I give them credit?
Who else would you give credit, if any?
Actually, I would have to give the Bad Boy Pistons their credit too. Like, just saying it because I actually like them, their style of play, but I would have to give them a certain amount of credit because notice when they played the New York Knicks, they tried the same tactics, and look what happened. They failed miserably. So yeah, in concert with his parents and his brother, Nike being cut, I would have to give Detroit probably, I would say maybe 9%, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if y'all agree, but I would have to give them a little bit, man. Because I mean, what they did you think about what the mental turmoil. You prepare for anything. So when they go up against the Indiana Pacers, right? People forget about them. They were a physical team. I mean, to me, they posed more mismatch problems than the Utah Jazz because they had the Davis boys. Then you had Jalen Rose, like 6'8". Chris Mullin, I mean, he was like, on his later legs, but still very impactful. And they played a physical brand of basketball. So one thing I will say, without them going against the Bad Boy Pistons, I'm not saying Jordan wouldn't have overcame it, but I think it helped bring them back to a moment like, hey, look, they're trying to play physical. Y'all know what we did to the Pistons, right? All right, cool. Let's lock back in. Let's go out here and take care of business. So, yeah, that's the best way I'd summarize that one.
All right, Nick, I know you're about to tell a story. If you want to tell that story and then what your take is on the Pistons.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned the Pistons and the Celtics. I think kind of might have been that last little bump Jordan needed to know what it was like to be championship worthy. But Hoopgod was talking about coaching people differently. I was just going to say, like, through elementary, right? My dad coached me, not to tell another childhood story, but he used to always tell me, he's like, I have to be harder on you than all of the other players. Because if for 1 second the other players think I'm going weak on my own kid, right? It breaks the total psyche that like it's not serious, right? And so he's like, if I come after you harder than others, you have to react and do it. And like, you know what I mean? And he was totally right. Like it sets a total precedence that, hey man, if he's chewing out his own kid for not being in the right spot at the right time, then obviously he's gonna tell me to get my ass in gear too, right? And so that was just one of those things, like mind games and little things that coaches may do, right? And I never forgot that. I was always like, I feel like we're not being honest, right? When he told me I'm a little kid, right? So I feel like we're not being honest with the team. But then, like as he explained it, I was like, okay, I mean, that does make sense, right? That like if he like is lax on me, then the other team's gonna be like, well, that's not fair, right? Like that we can't have that. It sends really is like there are like mind games you could play with people like that, and there's certain people you can push harder. Like he knew, like there was a group of guys I grew up with in that same time frame. And we, like he was saying, we'd have knockdown, drag out basketball games all night, right? And he knew in practice he could push those kids harder because he was around them more and stuff like that. And they knew what the deal was, right? But if a new kid came in, he was a little shy, right? He might have to kind of like get him up to speed, treat him a little differently. But yeah, definitely. There are some players you can push buttons on, and there are some guys, you kind of have to take a different approach with. But I thought that was a good analogy when he was saying that. Coaches definitely, I think, are always looking for ways to kind of psych out their players a little bit, right?
Yep. Sports psychology 101.
Robin, what's your take on the Pistons and Nick's story, if you want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, the Pistons, we mentioned this earlier about, losing and going through the fire and earning it, going through the grind. We often talk about, some players, trying to avoid going through the grind, going through the battles, putting the work in, earning the respect of the people, earning the respect of your contemporaries by going out there and battling against these guys, right? Never walking off the court early, always shaking hands. These are the things that I remember about Michael Jordan coming into the league, even as a young player, rookie, his first, second, third, fourth year, going through these battles. He's going against some of the elite defensive players at that position, the Sidney Moncriefs, the Michael Coopers, the Alvin Robertsons, the Joe Dumars, the Dennis Johnsons. These are some of the greatest defensive perimeter players in the history of the game that Michael Jordan, as a rookie, his first couple of years in the league, is going against these guys and steel sharpen steel. This is how Michael Jordan developed the overall arsenal, and he enhanced his skills going against these guys. Everyone always talks about, there was no players, there was no competition. These guys are plumbers and taxi cab drivers. These are all the people who don't know the game. They don't know about these grown men that was out there giving the effort on both ends, that was making Michael Jordan work and earn it. Michael Jordan could average 35 points a game against the Pistons, but guess what? He was getting beat down for those points. They were physically beating this man just so he could just stop him. So he was earning these points, man. The foul calls that people say Michael Jordan was getting going against some of these teams, he was earning this. So going against a team like the Detroit Pistons, and even beyond that, when we talk about the New York Knicks of the early 90s, who adapted a similar style to the Detroit Pistons, except to me, the New York Knicks were actually a better team because the New York Knicks were able to play or be a great defensive team without being dirty. The Pistons were a dirty team. The Knicks were never considered a dirty team. They were considered a blue-collar, hard work, hard-nosed kind of team. Right? That's what they were known for. Guys like John Starks and Charles Oakley, the Anthony Masons, the Patrick Ewings. This is what they were known for. They weren't known for dirty plays after the whistle and things like this. So you think about all the teams that he had to play against. You talked about the Indiana Pacers. We mentioned the Indiana Pacers of the late 90s. How about the Miami Heat of the late 90s that were also a physical team, coached by Pat Riley? So all those teams that the Bulls battled against absolutely made them who they were, even going against the Boston Celtics in 86 and 87, the Milwaukee Bucks in 1985 and beyond. All of these teams formed Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, all of these guys, man, because Michael Jordan saw what it took to win at that level. And like I said, what we always appreciate about Michael Jordan, I remember 1990, Game 7, Michael Jordan scores 30 whatever points he had, 39 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. The numbers are irrelevant. The Bulls ended up losing by double digits in that Game 7, right? It's known as the Scottie Pippen migraine game, right? Everyone talks about that. But what people don't talk about is after the game, immediately when the game ended, Michael Jordan is standing on the court with the towel around his neck, soaked in sweat after giving everything he had in a Game 7, losing again to your arch rivals. And they asked Michael Jordan, how do you feel, man, losing to this team again? And after shaking every one of these guys' hands, he didn't walk up the court early. He shook every one of the players on Detroit Pistons' hands. And he said to them, we are not on their level. We want to be where they are. We have to go and work harder to get there. He didn't say, Scottie Pippen had a migraine, and if he didn't score 2 points, we probably would have won this game. He didn't say that nonsense. He could have easily blamed Scottie Pippen. He could have blamed Phil Jackson, the coaching staff. Well, that's why I didn't want Phil Jackson here in his first year. I don't even know who this guy is. He never said those things. Michael Jordan kept it classy, and he always held his integrity. The man stood on these values. And he said, we are not where they are. We want to get on their level, man. And that's what it always was about Michael Jordan. Absolutely, the Pistons formed Michael Jordan, the Chicago Bulls, man.
What's your take on the Pistons and what Robin and Nick had to say on Common Sense?
I fully agree. To me, the Pistons are responsible for creating 6-0 Michael Jordan.
Yep.
I believe Michael Jordan was going to win championships no matter what. But I feel like the Pistons was such a challenge with that physicality that once Michael was able to overcome that, they were like the challenge that was like, how can I say this? The hardest challenge that you could possibly get to overcome for your first championship. So once Michael overcame that, that was his snapshot of how tough we needed to be, how mentally tough we needed to be to win championships. And of course, we all know Michael Jordan, has said in several interviews that the hardest thing, that each championship is always the hardest one, because after you win the first championship, you have to find a way to keep that same hunger you have to find a way to keep that same mental edge for each championship to keep winning. So I feel like the fact that the Pistons was that first obstacle to overcome, that was like the highest level of competitiveness from every angle that you could, especially from the physical angle. So once Michael Jordan had that snapshot of, okay, this is how tough we need to be to win championships. And it's kind of why I feel like his leadership style, especially during the second three-peat, because he had some different guys to deal with on the second three-peat that wasn't in the first three-peat. So his mentality was like, okay, I've worked this hard to get this far. Like, you new guys on this team are gonna have to understand what I went through to get to this point. So, which is why I think he had that kind of no-nonsense attitude with people, and it was like, hey, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get you here. If that means ridiculing you in practice, if that means rough and physical play in practice. But his mentality was like, if you practice with that same kind of intensity, then it won't be anything new in the game. And I feel like the Pistons are directly responsible for that. Like I said, I think the Pistons are responsible for 6-0 Michael Jordan. He was going to be a champion anyway, but I feel like because of the toughness he developed going through the Pistons, that's what gave him that invincibleness once he finally broke through.
Hey, Dart, I wanted to speak on something.
Sure, real fast, Soup God. I just want to address Perfect Prefect. He says, unfortunately, I have footage from the 80s and 90s. Some people have been watching a lot lately. You're talking about those 20-second shorts where somebody fumbles a ball and then they just categorize it as all of the 80s and 90s. Yeah, so yeah, I've seen those too. Yeah, it's trash.
Man, we got minutes-long video of the greatest player of this era rolling around the floor for minutes during a game, man. Stop with, please, miss me with the video footage talk. Perfect. You sound like an idiot.
Hey, Sports, you talking about the guy that walks off when it's like 2-3 minutes left in the game?
He talking about the eye test right now. What does the eye test show you in this era? Ben Simmons? Is this one of the great players of the eras? Ben Simmons. Remember, Michael Jordan gave birth to Kobe Bryant. LeBron James gave birth to Ben Simmons, man. Remember, he was going to be called the next LeBron James. That's what y'all got.
Hey, Sports and Fitness, don't forget, Michael Jordan's the grandfather of Kyrie Irving, Devin Booker, Jason Tatum, Giannis, all these guys, Kawhi Leonard. So, yeah, Michael Jordan's stake on the game is still here today. Hey, but NNB, like something you said about the sports psychology is another thing, not to digress, Dart. I want to just speak on Pop and Tim Duncan, because what he said, I think that was a perfect example. He coached Tim Duncan harder than anybody on the Spurs. Y'all see their success. I just want to say that. Appreciate
it. Yep. Do any of you have any alibis before we let people start calling in? Anyone want
Listen,
to say
man, all I know is to tell that clown, the kid fool, to call in. This dude been running his mouth the whole time live stream. Listen, I want to clarify something with these people. If you keep saying that we don't know basketball, that's what he keeps repeating in the chat, that we don't know basketball, we're Jordan sexuals, all these things, then why are you listening to us speak? I never understood the attraction or the allure with you guys, man. You come to the comment sections of videos and you say we don't know the game and we're a bunch of fools, but yet still, you guys are always there. You're always there watching and listening. So please call in, my man, and please break it down to us. I dare you to call in right now and explain it.
Does anyone else have anything to say before I drop the link?
Nah.
My fault.
Oh, go ahead, bro.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, it's funny that was brought up because I was just watching one. I guess what is it called? Something about the 90s. Tired about the 90s videos.
Yeah, we done with the 90s. We done with it.
Yeah. First of all, whoever's saying that, let's not make a compilation of everything going on in the league today. I mean, the fact that they picking plays with people shooting on the side of the backboard. I mean, I'm assuming that whoever this is talking is the person who's a servant of the so-called king. And you know, the compilations that could be made on this guy should end basketball.
Hey, I'm coming.
You know,
Hey, I'm common sense. This is my thing, right?
Yeah. Let's not bring up those videos, and especially when people are picking what you put in the video. You know, it's especially when it's no context, and more importantly, it's like if you know basketball and you know just first of all, no matter what flashy things these players can do nowadays, they don't even have the basic fundamentals down
at all. But I noticed something though, like
right.
as soon as these PED allegations started to resurface, now all of a sudden we done with the 80s and done. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, are y'all trying to create a smoke screen? Are y'all trying to be magicians out here? Because I don't care how many we done with this. Yo, these allegations are still being glaring over here. And now there's another reporter who works for Balco has even came out and made a statement. So I'm like, oh, it's starting to get ugly now.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Yo, because listen, man, that's the standard. This is what we're talking about, man. I tell them everybody on my channel, man, we're upholding the standard. So when they talk about we're done with the 90s, the problem for everybody else and some of these other eras also, man, is that those eras, these guys are not living up to those standards. That's the problem for these guys right now today. And this is the standard that we're talking about. Even if we go all the way back to the 50s, man, the 60s, the 70s, it doesn't matter. They're not living up to any of the standards that the guys before them played with. So that's the problem when they say they're done with the 90s. The problem is every time you turn the TV, they keep talking about a guy who played in the 90s, man.
Yeah, Uncut Hoops is in here, and he's asking us, again, I'm not going to repeat it, but Uncut Hoops, if you ever want to come on the panel, just let me know, and I'll drop the link for you. I'm dropping the link soon if you want to call in. But yeah,
this is what we were talking about. The we done with the 90s trend. Word up, man. Shout out to him.
Yep. So, yeah, we were just talking about it. In short, it's trash for me. I don't think there's much more to say about it. It's cherry picking some bad plays that occurred over decades. You know, you could, and like Robin was saying earlier, and Uncommon Sense, you could do that nowadays too. It's not hard to do. And then you just yell, "Oh, we're done with this. It's trash. Oh, they're trash." You know, anyone can do that, man.
Yeah, but the reality is that everybody really is done with this stuff. This is why everybody's pushing back. This is why the thing is, like we just said, it's about the standard. So to my man, Uncut Hoops, man, it's about the standard. They want to be done with the 90s because these guys in this era are not living up. So what do they keep calling us? They keep calling us old heads. Anyone that supports any past eras, you're an old head. Even if you're younger than them, you're still an old head because it's an old way of thinking, they're saying. It doesn't matter. They don't want to live in reality. The reality is that the guys that are playing today, when they want to mention skills, like my man Uncommon Sense was saying, these guys today, how skillful are you when you're allowed to get away with the traveling violations, the palming violations that the players in previous eras were not allowed to get away with? They had to be more fundamentally sound. Your handle had to be tighter back in them eras. So they can laugh at Bob Cousy all the hell they want to, but the facts remain that this man was dropping dimes out there without fumbling the ball all over the court and turning the ball over. He wasn't hitting people in the head when he passed the ball. You know what I'm saying? The man knew how to handle. He was a magician. He was the Houdini of the hardwood for a reason. He was a true pioneer of NBA.
The first, the first Magic.
Yeah, the whole like the new era's more skilled argument is just they shoot more threes and they have more ISO ball where they dribble side to side like Kyrie Irving, which I like Kyrie. I don't mean that as an insult. But when they say more skilled, that's what it breaks down to. It's just more and one dribbling and more threes taken. That is largely what more skilled breaks down to these days.
AAU basketball is what it is.
Real fast. This is not for me. It says paired, and I can't see who it's paired to. So I guess it's either NMB or Robin. If y'all know who James Brickner is, they super chatted you and said hashtag we done with LeBron. So
is that me? I see him in my chat, I think.
Yeah, if he's in your chat, then you got super chatted, man. I don't have my YouTube up, but I know that it would just say that it's for me. Damn. So is that for you? He's in your YouTube chat? Are you watching it?
Let me go to my channel real quick.
All right. Well, anyway, I just preemptively thank you for super chatting either Robin or NNB, James Brickner. Hashtag
Yeah,
we
much
done with
respect.
LeBron.
No,
Much
that wasn't
respect
me.
for the super chat. If it was for me, whoever, it doesn't even matter. Just much respect for coming out and donating to the live stream in general. Because once again, man, these fools, they can say whatever they want. But remember, when you hear players today complaining about the 65-game minimum, when you hear them complain, what have you heard some of these fools say? Oh, the past eras didn't have this minimum. And why is that? See, they expose themselves without realizing it. The reason why these past eras didn't have that minimum is because these guys show up to work. These guys actually showed up. They were getting paid way less money, but somehow, some way, they made it to work in the 50s, in the 60s. You have guys getting people throwing people out of the stands now, and they're saying, oh, the fans can't say whatever they want to us. Who do they think they are? So you're going to tell me that the guys who were playing during the civil rights movement in the 60s weren't hearing some crazy stuff in the stands? When Bill Russell traveled with the Boston Celtics, he couldn't even stay in the same hotel as his teammates because he was black. Did he get to cry about that? No, the man still went out there and performed on the basketball court because he was a true competitor, man. You know what I'm saying? These guys today do not live up. They're not living up, man. That's the problem. They're lacking the integrity and the honor. So when they have to come up with a 65-game minimum and flopping guidelines, think about this, man. They didn't have flopping guidelines in the 60s or the 70s or the 80s or the 2000s. They didn't have these guidelines in place for the players because it was not needed. What this going on right now is these guys have exposed themselves as being self-entitled and not truly loving the game. What they love is what they get from the game, and what they get is the fame and the money, something that you had to earn back in them days.
All right. Does anyone else have anything else to say before we let callers come in? We'll see if Jason the Kid calls in. Aaron Adams, I don't know if you're still here. You're welcome to call in, etc. Anyone else that's willing to, but does anyone else have anything else to say? Nope. All right. I'm dropping the link right now. If you're in the chat, you can come. You can come either ask us a question. Well, that's how it's going to be. It's not going to be a total argument because that just evolves and it gets a little too crazy. But
Agreed.
you know,
I promise to chill and be good, man. I'm not going to yell at anybody today, man. Please don't be scared to call in, man. Once again, like I said, man, show and prove.
Yeah, well, it's not. You know, they do.
I know how I get. Listen, man. Sports and fitness rants. This is my thing, man. I can't help it. It's who I am. Damn it. All right. And sometimes when I hear the nonsense, I will not allow it to stand any longer. So make sure you come with the facts.
All right, Gerald Allen, welcome. How are you today?
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up? Do you have a question for the panel or an individual on the panel?
I don't know. LeBron fans, they just don't know nothing about basketball at all. I laugh at these clowns all the time. Man, he's not even the greatest small forward of all time. I got Larry Bird over him.
Speak on it. Speak on it.
I got Larry Bird over him. I got Dr. J over him too as well.
Yes.
Larry Joe Bird, greatest small forward of all time. Talk that talk.
Larry Bird can play in a system with or without the basketball.
Hey, bro, let him know. Hey, Bird went 50, 40, 90 in the 86 playoffs. Like, the more research.
LeBron had the nerve to say he could have did that if he wanted to. You can't even shoot 70% from the 80% from the
yeah,
free throw
he ain't
line.
never making that free throw line. There's no way he's ever shooting 90% from the free throw.
Yeah, today's guys, these guys entitled. They don't want to play all the games. They sit around and complain too much to me, too much super team stuff. None of these guys want to compete. Like, I was born in '84, the year Jordan came to the league. So, yeah. Yep. So yeah, LeBron he not in my top 10 either.
Bro, he not in my top 10. I'm sorry, I got Will over him.
Let's go, baby. I got Hakeem. People get mad because I said Hakeem's better than him.
No, that's facts though. Think about
it. Those are the facts.
Outside of threes, what is LeBron better than Hakeem at? Outside of threes.
Yeah.
Nothing.
His fanboys need to quit saying he can guard 1 through 5. He never stopped no great player in the playoffs. He did. And then
not consistently. That's for sure.
That's largely because of today's positionless basketball is really why that is. It's not like he can guard a center. Do you know what I mean?
He didn't stop Derrick Rose. They played like a boxing one defense. It wasn't LeBron didn't guard that man one-on-one.
Yeah, that's another one I hate. Is he essentially had like one good quarter or decent quarter in that iconic play against Rose, and they're like, "Oh, he can shut down Rose." Like,
This how you know he. I never seen this ever. When Magic Johnson went on the panel before Game 6 of the 2011 NBA Finals and said, "Can I stop Jason Terry?"
Hey,
my
yo,
boy
Never seen
cooked
that
him.
before.
yo, Jason Terry sized him up and hit that clutch 3 right. I mean, he put a dagger on him and he hit the jet on him. I said, bro, get this man out of here, man. Get this man out of here.
Yeah.
When he and then when
There was
that
something
fourth-
where like they said LeBron broke the record for most double-digit point games in a row. And
that was a
all I
lot.
could
He
think
had
about
8
was
points.
2011
He had 8
finals
points.
when he
He
had
had
like 8 points.
He had 8 points in Game 4 of the finals.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. He had single-digit points
Yeah.
in a game.
Nah, we got to
Hey,
give Bron credit because he made the Spurs and the Warriors a dynasty. So we got to give him credit, man.
Hey, he got me
y'all
my first
remember-
ring, so I appreciate
Remember,
it.
before I go, y'all remember? People don't know this. Go look back at the 2014 NBA Finals. This when Kawhi was a young pup. He wasn't an all-star or nothing.
Yep.
Games 3 through 5, Kawhi Leonard averaged 23 points
Yep.
on 60% shooting,
Yep.
50% from the three-point line
Yep.
in the 2014 NBA Finals.
Yep. And cook
He wasn't
LeBron.
even a
LeBron
star.
scored 1 bucket on Kawhi when he locked up on him.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think LeBron shot like 38% when Kawhi was the primary ball handler.
Yep. I remember that. Yep.
LeBron game is he like to hunt mismatches. He's a pick and roll, try to get a slow big on him or get a small guard on him. That's his whole game to beat.
Real fast. And Gerald, you're welcome to hang out because nobody else is called in. If you wanna ask a question or if you wanna just make comments on today's game, that's fine too. But if you want to go and click
I think the game is
just real fast. The
Okay.
if you want to call in, it's to be able to click the link. You got to come to my channel. Michael Jordan fans are the best. You don't have to subscribe if you don't like me. But if you want to make it easier, if you want to call in, come to my channel and click on the link. Anyway, what were you saying, Gerald?
Yeah, I be on Sports Rant and the guy next Uncommon. That y'all got some great channels, guys.
Much
Yo,
appreciated.
thank you.
The thing is today's game, all these big men want to play on the perimeter instead of playing on the low post. That's the thing I don't like about the game. Everybody chucking up threes. Everybody's not Steph Curry. You got all these guys jacking up threes that's not great shooters. And everybody play this like Kobe Bryant said, today's game is accidental basketball. Everybody is just drawing and kicking. Ain't nobody playing in a real system. Only team that really plays in a real system is the Denver Nuggets and the Golden State Warriors. Everybody else don't play in the real system.
The Kings to a lesser degree, but I'm with you there.
Yeah,
They play driving.
Yeah.
Hey, Gerald, I call it driving brick basketball. That's what they doing.
I was watching the Phoenix Suns versus Denver Nuggets game a few days ago.
Kevin Durant.
And
Kevin Durant is a turnover machine. Oh my
Well-
God! And they talk about his ball handling ability is not like.
well, I
that
was
guy.
impressed. Phoenix was actually running more than one action plays. It was impressive. They
Yeah.
actually, had 3 people involved in the play.
Because Kevin Durant almost cost the Warriors the series in 2018 against the Rockets because he tried to break out the Golden State system and was trying to go isolation.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's how they almost lost. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched it. I think I watched
Yeah.
it was the first game of the season. It was the Nuggets and Phoenix too. And for like the last couple plays, KD was just running ISO. And then you even hear it was
Yeah.
I think Jeff Van Gundy was commentating, and he said the people need to move. I'm like, dude, they're calling ISO for KD. Of course they need to move, but they ain't gonna move because they're calling ISO for KD. It's funny, like, and everyone knows he knows that, but it's
Hey, Dart. And speaking
None
of
of these
coaches,
guys,
Frank Vogel is a good coach.
no disrespect to
Just
none of these
credit.
guys that play today. none of them dudes not winning no MVP in the 80s or the 90s, man. None of these Westbrook, especially, oh my God, James Harden. I can't stand that guy, game. He's
Word.
not a top 5 shooting guard all the time. People need to stop it. The dude told me better than Clyde Drexler. No, he's not. He's not better than
Bro, they
Clyde.
don't. Yeah, they don't know basketball. Dudes who talk like that, they're using analytics. They don't know basketball.
Yeah, the 3-point, and then the pace of play, and they need to bring back illegal defense too, because when the shot go up, you get an extra possession, and they put 14 seconds left on the shot clock. They
Well,
get
yeah,
more
then you got
possessions.
like, and then you got to think the pace has substantially increased with them
Yeah,
not playing defense. So it's like, no, we gotta factor all these things into the equation. Because my thing, like
is
I told
another.
them, no, I was just saying, like Clyde led them to back like to what two finals appearances in
Yep,
Portland.
yep.
James
In
Harden got
90, in 90, and in 92, he played the Pistons in 92, and he played the Bulls and the Bulls in 92 and the Pistons in 90. Yeah, my bad.
Gerald, we have another caller coming in, so
All right.
I'm gonna let him in. You have anything to say to anybody before you leave?
Yeah, keep doing the good work y'all doing, and God bless and have a blessed day.
Yo,
most
you too,
definitely.
man. Thank you.
You too.
Yeah,
Thanks, Gerald.
yeah.
All right, Mike Lowry, how you doing today?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
What up?
Bro.
What up?
Great,
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
absolutely.
The reason I'm calling in is because I follow sports and fitness rants real heavy. Yeah, I think he knows that. I kind of comment probably on every post that he makes, and me and him have been going back and forth about this one particular issue. I agree with everything else you said, except this one particular issue, and that's the super team issue and us kind of going at LeBron for creating the super team and not the super team, but the overpowered super team. We kind of aim our kind of vigor in his direction when it comes to that, and that's the one thing that I kind of he does he kind of d-hops a little bit. We all get that. He finds the best all-stars. He tries to we know what he does, but he's not the first, and that's the only thing that I want to mention. We kind of go back and forth, but he's definitely not the first. This super team stuff goes way back to the 40s. When basketball first started, all guys wanted to team up. That's why there are bad teams, because guys team up. Some of the best greats get together, and then you got only 2 good teams out of 10, 15 good teams. You know what I mean?
Do you mind if I respond?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, so with the super teams essentially prior to 1984, that's largely because of the salary cap. It's just the way it was, right? The East Coast and West Coast just kind of dominated. You got a couple franchises who just spent more money on talent, etc., right? So that's how you got the Lakers and the Celtics. From there, in the 90s, you see a massive leveling off of, like, essentially, if you have 2 All-Stars, that's a lot on a team in the 90s. And a good example, in my opinion, of how, like, you do talk about how at the top there's this really good and it's not as strung out as it used to be. I did a debate on the 2011 Mavs and 95 Rockets. The Rockets that year, the Rockets that year were like, I think to get to like plus 2,000 odds, you had to go to like the 15th best team prior to the year started, right? In 2011, when the Mavs won, the Mavs were not a favorite. Remember that. Mavs were not like a favorite going into that year. They were only like 4th or 5th down at plus 2,000 or whatever it was, right? So in terms of, we talk about the super teams. Yes, it's happened before, but largely it's older players like Barkley and Pippen going to the Rockets, Peyton and Malone going to the Lakers, right? Kind of like this last fleeting hope of getting a ring. When LeBron did it, he did it in their prime. Like, all these guys were coming off all NBA seasons, all defensive seasons, MVP getting award shares, all of them, like the prior year or two. I think it's the way he did it and win, right? He did it by going and joining other prime all-stars, essentially. maybe they were, barely starting to come down a little bit, but they were still up there in their prime. I think that's what most people have an issue with, is that he kind of kickstarted the super team in the new era after the salary cap in the 90s had kind of flattened everyone out. And he kickstarted it again almost in a way where, you're right, we have a salary cap now, but that doesn't prevent us from shaking some hands behind closed doors, deciding how much money to take and forming a super team that way. I think he kind of just I don't want to say game the system, but they got together and said, what are the rules? What can we do here? What money do we need to take to make the three of us work together, right? I think it's the nature in which he did it. Not so much that there hadn't been super teams before, but in this new salary cap era, he essentially kind of gamed the system to join up with other prime players who were max contract guys, essentially, to form a super team that way. I think that's what people have an issue with.
Let me just say one thing about this, is that with the 40s up until the mid 70s, there was no free agency. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar brought it into it, and then it wasn't free agency as it's known today. So were there super teams? Sure, if you want to categorize that, but I think a lot of people go and they call a super team guys that conspire together through free agency to be able to go and be on the same team. There were amazing teams that you could call super teams, but I think there's without it reading between the lines, when somebody says super team, it's conspiracy. I just wanted to add that.
Can I answer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think we see when you use the word super team, and I know you say that. I know you, Mike Larry, my man. I respect you, man. Thank you for all your support, man, for real. When we talk about the super teams, the one thing we have to keep in mind, the term super team is getting thrown around haphazardly now. Because when you talk about some of those teams in the 40s or even the 50s, the George Mikan Minneapolis Lakers, the Boston Celtics in the 60s, they were super teams, not super teams. All right, there's a difference there, because once again, it goes back to the mindset here. When we talk about LeBron James, the mindset of LeBron James was to what? To put the odds in his favor to win in the prime, because he did not want to go through the fire to win. When we talk about some of these teams being put together or assembled through drafts, things of this nature, that's just the way it happened. That's organically made teams. These are not guys teaming up, calling each other on the phone, Will Chamberlain and Bill Russell saying, hey, we're going to come play together. Yes, some of these teams came together. You think about the 70s Lakers, right? You think about some of those teams that came together. Like Nick NMB said, these guys were put together later in their careers. When I grew up watching basketball in the 80s and the 90s, anytime there were players who, quote unquote, were ring chasing, they were ring chasing well after their 35th birthday. Karl Malone was damn near 40 years old when he went to the Lakers in 2004. This wasn't Karl Malone at 28 years old. That's the problem for LeBron James. When you go there in the prime of your career, essentially because you quit on your franchise, those are the things that look bad. It's not the same thing as the 80s Celtics and the 80s Lakers or some of these other teams that were great. It's the way that you come about these things. Like I said, the collusion and running from the grind. So even though LeBron James is an all-time great player, I've always said this, the problem comes when you're being compared to the other greats who did not do these things. So when you're being compared to Michael Jordan, who never formed a super team, because whenever we say we're throwing the word super team around a lot, now what do we hear now? Now all of a sudden, I'm grown up and I hear Michael Jordan play for a super team from 1996 to 1998 because Dennis Rodman came to the Bulls. But meanwhile, they still tell us that the 1991 Pistons were old when they beat them because they were under 30. Dennis Rodman was 34 years old when he came to the Bulls in 1996. He had played with David Robinson the year before. David Robinson was the MVP in 95. They lost in the Western Conference Finals. They didn't win the championship because Dennis Rodman made them a super team. Dennis Rodman came and played a role in the Chicago Bulls. You can't have it both ways. It can't be a super team in 98, 96, 97, but it wasn't a super team in 91 then. Those teams were never considered a super team, the Pistons. They were just considered a great team. These teams had chemistry. They played together for years. They were not colluding and joining teams. These guys were free agents, older. It's just not the same. You know what I'm saying?
That's where my pushback comes. Sorry to cut you off. That's where my pushback comes. How do we know that? How do we know that they didn't collude? How do we know that? They probably
like
did,
I said,
honestly.
When you look at these players, anyone you think about in the history of the game, These guys came together later in their careers. These were not the guys in their primes. They didn't have that power. They didn't have the ability to go whenever they wanted to. Like we mentioned, when I grew up watching basketball in the 80s and the 90s, when you think about the powerhouse teams, the Milwaukee Bucks in the 80s, the Lakers, the Pistons, the Celtics, the Hawks, these teams were put together through draft picks. Kevin McHale was drafted to the Celtics by the team. Larry Bird was drafted there. They had Robert Parrish come over as a free agent. Robert Parrish came over. This wasn't Robert Parrish in his prime. Robert Parrish had a long career. He wasn't going there to help Larry Bird and Kalu to win. You think about the Lakers. They had a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar there. They traded 4 players to get Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the 75 season. They traded the whole team away. He was there for 5 years before they got guys like Jamal Wilkes and Norm Nixon and Magic Johnson in the draft. They drafted James Worthy. So when we're talking about some of these teams, you look at the Houston Rockets in the 80s. They had Ralph Sampson. They drafted Hakeem Olajuwon. They're drafting these players. These are not guys calling each other up. Hey, man, I want to come play with you. Michael Jordan could have easily went to the New York Knicks, joined Patrick Ewing. He could have easily went to the Sixers and played with Charles Barkley and vice versa. They didn't do these things. LeBron James literally ran away from the grind, which was what? The Boston Celtics that came and were standing in his way. But people never mentioned the Orlando Magic. They weren't a super team
Knicks were
put
too
together.
busy overpaying Allen
He
Houston
was
to
like a
go
Dwight
after
Howard and
anybody.
Hey,
Well, real
They were
fast.
too busy overpaying Allen Houston to go after anybody. The New York Knicks were tripping.
Real fast, James Brickner, 2 things. James Brickner sent us another super chat. When players began colluding to sign with each other, that birthed a super team, not teams drafting and teasing for a quality player. And then also I want to address, if you want to say something about that, Robin, but we have Man Down Sports in here. I was actually thinking about reaching out to you if you want to call in and talk about this. He says no super team has nothing to do with it if the players conspired. Any team with 3 or more prime legit number 1 superstars is a super team. It's only 10 to 12 of those guys, and to have 3 is a huge advantage.
That makes no sense. That doesn't make any sense. Listen to
Yeah,
me.
it doesn't
When
make
we're
any
talking about
sense.
super teams, listen, we talk about the 80s, for example, right? When people want to talk about these super teams, the Celtics and the Lakers going against each other in the NBA Finals. Who has an advantage there? No one has an advantage. That's why those finals were so great. No one had an advantage. You had great players on both sides of the
Both
ball,
sides, yeah.
man. This wasn't a stacked team going against nobodies. These guys earned those championships. Just because you have 3 All-Stars or 4 All-Stars does not make you a quote-unquote super team. That's why I'm saying the term is getting thrown around too much now. When I was growing up, no one ever said the Boston Celtics in the 60s were a super team in a negative way. They were known as a super team. Why? Because of the championships they won. But no one ever labeled them like, oh, they're a super team, man. You know, that's the only reason. Nah, it was never like that, man. All of a sudden now, everyone's a super team if you have 2 or 3 All-Stars. So you're going to tell me the Atlanta Hawks in the 2015 NBA season were a super team because they had 3 All-Stars with Kyle Korver and Paul Millsap and what was his name? Josh Smith. Like, come on, man. What are we saying here? It don't make sense.
Well, because at the end of the day, if you get 3 superstars in their prime like that, they still have to perform. They still have to show up.
Is not a
That's
superstar.
why.
That's the difference, though.
The Heat
Remember,
lost to
and
Dallas.
that's the difference of
That's
this
why
era.
the Heat lost to Dallas, because Dallas had chemistry. They knew who to get, who to pick up. They were deep. Do we know that?
Exactly. So this is the point I'm making. These are the teams that Michael Jordan was playing in the 90s. When people try to talk about the names on the back of the jersey, it's not about the name on the back of the jersey. These teams were deep. They had chemistry. When you talk about the Phoenix Suns in 1993, they were the number 1 scoring offense in the league that year, the number 1 high-rated offense. It wasn't just because of Charles Barkley. It was because you had Kevin Johnson and Dan Marley and Danny Ainge and Tom Chambers and Mark West and Richard Dumas. You had a full team of guys who were professional veterans that knew how to play the game. When we think about the 1996 Sonics, this was a deep team top to bottom. It wasn't, oh, Michael Jordan had Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman. Yeah, well, they had Sean Kemp, they had Gary Payton, they had Nate McMillan, they had Detlef Schrempf. They had a bunch of guys, man. Hersey Hawkins. There's a bunch of guys on these teams, man.
Real fast, 3 things. And then we're going to let Double A on. But first off, thank you, Pierre Lynch. You sent me a super chat earlier. I put it up on the front for $5. You would shout it out everyone on the panel. Thank you very much for your support. And now there's another super chat from Animaniac, I believe, to Robin. Cheers to Sports and Fitness Rants, LBJ, Wade, and Bob extension so they can team up. That's anti-competitive. Also, he owns Clutch Sports. His clients like AD request and trades to his team. That's some home moves. Well, actually, 4 things. Man Down Sports. If you'd like to call in, you got to go to my channel. You don't got to subscribe to me or anything like that. I know you got your own thing, but if you want to call in, please call in. Just come to my channel and click the link on it. And then 4th, I'm running down the list. How about 10 things, right? Hoop God says he wants to ask you a question, Mike, and then we got Aaron Adams in the back.
Can I say one thing real quick about that? I think also one of the things I think Robin kind of mentioned it about being organic versus AstroTurf. If a team like sells the farm and they're like, there are 3 guys in this draft class. We're selling the farm in our future to get these 3 first-round picks. They all hit. They all become all-stars 5 years later, are all legit number 1 options or something. Like, yes, technically that is a super team, but more credit is given to the fact that the organization at the hindsight took the risk and were rewarded for their risk in terms of having the vision to think that was going to work, right? So, like, yes, you could argue that's a super team, but it came about organically. They took a big risk to get that trio, right? They had the vision to make it come together. That I don't think is really frowned upon as much as 3 guys saying, hey, let's work our contracts while we're all in our prime because we want to get some rings, right? I think yes, you could say that they're the same, but they're looked at totally different. I think when you make the right moves and take the risk and it hits versus, again, shaking hands behind closed doors. I think banana boat is the term people throw around a lot. So,
oh man, banana boat crew. But my whole thing is, and my only pushback is, LeBron didn't create it. He didn't start it. He just took advantage of it, which is what we do as humans.
He started it, man.
We do that as humans.
But
we do that as humans. We take advantage of the system. We all do that. When you have a crack in the system, you take advantage of it. That's what a lot of people do.
That's fine. But when you're all these years later, then ask us for the respect, my man. You see that it all comes back all these years later? See, he's asking for the respect because he hasn't earned it. So you're right. He can take advantage of the system. He can play that game. But guess what, my man? This is why he's not top 10. This is why he'll never be recognized as one of those greats, because he gamed the system like you're talking about. He didn't carry himself with the integrity, honor.
And I think also Wade, Bosch, one last thing. I think Wade, Bosch, and LeBron, they were at the time 3 of the top 15 or 20 players. They have power, right? So for them to take advantage, it's not really seen as taking advantage as gaming the system, right? When you're that high of the hierarchy of the power in terms of player production, right? It'd be different if like guys at the bottom took advantage and they gamed the system to win. It's not the same when you're like the best 3 out of the top 20 players. I don't think you can really say it as like taking advantage in terms of like you tip the cap to them. It's more like taking advantage because they just could. I don't think that's applauded as much.
Like if why did LeBron James go to New York? He could have went to the New York Knicks. He could have got Carmelo Anthony, went to the New York Knicks, and he would have gotten the respect going there. Because why? The New York Knicks were nobodies. They had never won in a long time, right? They were looking for somebody to come. But LeBron James was too scared to go to New York. So where did he go? He went to a player who had already won a championship, drafted the same year you were drafted. You see, it's a combination of different things, man. It's a combination of different things. He's been exposed.
Gentlemen, Hoop got an uncommon sense. Do you have anything to say about this before Double A gets his turn?
Yeah. I was just gonna say this. To me, it's all about having a choice. And to me, as a competitor, if you are choosing to do this, that is much different than someone drafting. And I just put it like this: that's like you going to the playground and it's a group of guys on there running everybody. Now it's like you as a competitor it's different between you choosing to join that team and there are captains picking you as a player. Like when you choose to join the people who are dominating, to me, well, I mean, like Sports and Fitness Rant said, it's like you can do that, but then you got to suffer what everyone else is going to feel about that move. Like that's a weak move. You're not.
We're talking about a spineless dude that doesn't care. He doesn't care. He just wants the accolades. And so, but he's not. So he's, like I said, he's taking advantage of the system. He doesn't really care about the consequences behind it. Decisions.
Yeah, and then like I said, I think my thing is LeBron James is the leader of this self-created super team. You know that is what he ushered in.
That's my problem there.
Wait, so
Yeah, I don't know if I would say LeBron started it, but he threw gas on the fire for sure. You know,
that's what I want to speak on. Hold on, I want to speak on that real quick. So before they came together, LeBron was second in scoring because I had to pull it up. LeBron was second in scoring to Kevin Durant. Dwayne Wade was fifth in scoring with 26.6 per game. Chris Bosh was ninth in scoring at 24 points per game before they came together. Now, I just want to know this. The Cleveland Cavaliers were a championship contender. The Toronto Raptors, they were a playoff contender. You take both of their best players and bring them onto the Miami Heat. Does that not cripple the competition in that conference? You basically weaken your competition because you put them all on one team subsequently. Now, I'm asking that only because don't recall the Celtics doing that because Robert Parrish was not leading anybody to the playoffs. And like Sports and Fitness Rant said, they drafted Kevin McHale, 6-man coming off the bench. Nobody called them a super team, much like the Lakers. They had Kareem, but what were these guys doing? They weren't even getting to the finals. They were getting knocked out in the second round. Draft Magic immediately takes them over the top. Now, when the Bulls got Rodman, what competition did they weaken? They got Rodman.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, he didn't come from the East. So all they did was make an addition to get a guy that they needed to play down low and get production from him, right? But when I look at the Miami Heat, and if you want to use Boston, it's fine. But again, the same logic applies. They didn't come together in the Western Conference. They came together in the East. They didn't go get Jason Kidd. They didn't go get Reggie Miller from their team to say, hey, come over here to Boston with us. But with Miami, you take two other top-tier contending teams and you bring them onto one. So now, essentially, you've made the Cavaliers, Toronto Raptors lottery teams because you eliminated the competition. That's what we've never seen before in the history of sports. Three guys who were putting well up over, 25 points per game, right in the heart of their primes, colluding together. And this is even on the documentary of the Redeem team. They said in 2008 is when LeBron, Melo, Bosh, Wade began to say, yo, we need to not renew our contracts. So when our rookie deals are up, we can come together and control our own fate. Now, if you want to look at it from two different aspects, you want to control your own destiny, it's totally fine. But like my man in this race, hold on, like he said, for the course, you got to take the backlash. You can't say, hey, I'm going to make this move and then I need to get all the praise. No, it doesn't work like that. Now, on the other side, if you make that move and let's say you three-peat, you win 4 straight, hey, you go down in history, right? Hey, you decided to take your fate in your own hands. You three-peated, you four-peated. Nobody can do that. You don't get the job done, and then you come up short like that on 2 occasions. There's no rhyme or reason like you can't get around it. That's why, like he said, after the guy that's still asking for his respect because he know ultimately he's circumvented the process. That's what I want to speak on that. Like before the Miami Heat did this, has there been any other teams who weakened the competition in their conference, bringing 2 other top tier players together to go compete for championships?
So Mike, do you have any last words before Aaron Adams gets the spotlight here?
Yeah, again, we can't change how the world works, right? It's life, death, and taxes. That's what we got, right? And so people are going to take advantage of systems. These guys were all in the same technical draft class, right? They were all close in age as well. They're friends. They're homies. They're probably going to be at each other's weddings, even if they weren't on the same team. So we're talking about 4 guys that get together.
He didn't even go to the Wayne Wade memorial for a ceremony. He didn't even go to the Wayne Wade's Hall of Fame ceremony. They're that great of friends, right?
He sure didn't. He didn't.
I didn't say real friends. They could be fake friends.
But don't make it about that, though, man. Come on, Mike. Mike Larry. Come on, man. For real. Don't make it about that kind of stuff, man.
I can make money with somebody. That don't mean I like them. I can make money with you. That don't mean I like you.
Yeah, but you saying they go to weddings and stuff. What I'm saying here, man, is the facts can't be denied. You can't deny LeBron James is the problem with the NBA right now. Why do you think Kevin Durant made that move? You think Kevin Durant made that move because of the Celtics in the 80s or the Lakers or Bill Russell Celtics? No, he made that move because of LeBron James. So what we're talking about is LeBron James could have went to any other team. That's what we're saying. He could have went to any team. The problem is he didn't do that. He went to a guy who already won to hide.
The one thing I will say, because I'm from the DMV, and so I played with KD before. I've been a run and shoot. I kind of know a lot of the players that right now. I played with them, all that good stuff, right? I know some of KD's family. But what I will say is with that, KD is a pure scorer. All he wants to do is play ball. He don't like defense, and he don't like getting touched. So the best place to go is probably the most open type of team that's in the league, which was Golden State. And he had a chance to do it, and he took it. He's always going to take advantage of things like that.
I agree. He weakened the competition when he done that, but I agree.
I mean, the man was in Southeast DC, right? Like a decade back. He scored 57 points in Southeast against people like me. And he scored 57 points. He's beating on his chest saying, I'm the best scorer in the world. I'm like, what the hell? We are the best. We outside. Like, what are we talking about here? Do it in the NBA. But that's the kind of guy he is. That's the kind of guy he is. I've drawn triple doubles outside with pros out there. I ain't beating myself on the chest saying I'm the best player out here. Hell no. But that's the type of person he is, and that's kind of NBA we got. We can't. But what I will say is LeBron, again, he just took advantage of the system, like a lot of these guys do. That's why we need the old NBA back.
I agree. Thank you, Mike, for calling. I appreciate you calling in, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks a lot, man.
Absolutely. Aaron Adams, AA, welcome.
Hey, I don't like how y'all put me to the side, man. I thought I was one of the originals with y'all, man. I've been repping y'all forever, man. Who God, NMB, I've been holding y'all down, man. I even get planted on Go James Kingdom. He puts me in his videos, and y'all tell me I gotta wait till the end of the show. Y'all breaking my heart, man.
My bad, bro.
I'm not in charge of the back room, man.
It's all love. It's all love. It's all love, fellas. It's all love. But you know what I was thinking, man? Jordan's the only player, right, that we have to find excuses for his greatness when it was just right in front of us. I think this era, and I'll say generation, I assume all of us are like, we all 30 plus in here, right? Give or take. I don't want to, This generation
30 plus a lot.
All right. We're gonna leave it there, right? This generation hasn't seen winning the way we saw winning with one person. So they're so used to losers that they have to find some way to amplify some of these players, right? Like I just saw a stat the other day, for example, and we know certain pages like to use stats all day. Draymond made more 3-point field goals than Larry Bird, right? And we all know that if you put the context behind it, it's a whole we having a whole nother conversation. And I think Jordan, he's just the only guy that we've seen it happen in real time. We've seen him win. We seen him dominate, and we still find excuses to say why he did it. We sit here and praise Scottie Pippen. Now, he wasn't a scrub, far from. But he wasn't on this pedestal like people put him on. If we're going to do that to Scottie, we got to do the same thing to D-Wade. We got to do the same thing to Chris Bosh. We got to do the same thing to Kyrie. We got to do the same thing to Ant Davis and say these players are great. The co-stars can't be only great for one team and not the other team. You know what I'm saying? I watch these other channels talk about who had the help and what numbers. Listen, when it all came down to it, better team, that shit didn't matter. A lot of teams I think were better than the Bulls. They just had Jordan, and that makes the difference sometimes. That's all it is. When we watch all these NBA games, I think we all avid watchers. Every NBA game is what? It comes down to what? The last 2-3 minutes, most of them, if it's not a blowout. So all these games we can agree are in reach, right?
Yep.
All in reach. Sometimes when it comes down to those last 3 minutes, the separator is I have this player and you don't. This is why LeBron, the KDs, the Bookers, the Jordans, the Hardys, they get paid all this money because those last 3 minutes of the game, you can count on them. That's why you pick them up. You don't just say, yo, it's a team sport. We all gonna collectively win. We all know when shit gets ugly, we gotta go to these star players. This is what they get played for. LeBron doesn't come up as big as people want him to. Have the players in the league don't do it. But I think we make these excuses that, the better team, so that's why we couldn't win. No, it comes down to if you're the better player, you could take over. You're not going to lose. That's all it is sometimes. All the other stuff is irrelevant.
So real fast, before the panel wants to answer that, welcome, Man Down Sports. How are you today?
What's up, big dog? I'm good, man. How everybody doing?
One more thing. Man Down Sports. I be watching your channel, but every time I want to get on, I think I catch it afterwards. I watch your stream. Your shit is legit. I be wanting to get on and say something, but I always catch it when after the whole thing is done. I just want to shout you out and give you props on your stream, bro.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate it, brother.
I guess since you're in here, what do you have to say about what Double A's been saying?
Who was Double A? The last guy that was talking?
Yeah.
Oh no, I agree with that. What he was saying, but I try to stray away from talking about MJ. I mean, I don't think it's a debate with that guy no more, man. So I mean, it's nothing you can say about MJ. MJ is the dude. That's a mute point. But I agree with everything Double A said.
Be like, like sports fellas, we can watch every game. We can go back to college games. We go back to even football. Pat Mahomes gets paid this money because they know with 2 minutes left and they're not down by more than a touchdown, he's going to come back and win the game. That's what all these guys get paid for, the last 3 minutes of the game. Nothing else. Sure. I think we just exaggerate with players to say, oh, well, look, Carl Towns has this. Such and such player averages that. All right, but when the game is close, can he make a clutch basket? Kenny, or we just gonna say, hey, well, he had great stats. If we just saying we playing for stats and chips don't matter because chips are the ultimate, that's the ultimate thing. I don't care what nobody says. I don't care about no team achievement. If that's the case, then nobody should get credit because everybody has more players, has other players on the court with them.
Hey, Double A, I wanted to just follow a point that you made because I saw that graph too when they said that Draymond had passed Bird and cumulative threes essentially. And I just made a statement. I said that's interesting. It took Draymond this long to pass Bird when he grew up with the 3-point line from elementary school all the way up. Yeah, when Larry Bird never seen the 3-point line until he got into the NBA.
Great point. This is what I'm saying. So this is why it's not work. This is why Jordan may have had a great mid-range because again, there wasn't a 3-point line to shoot from when he was growing up. Yeah. So that's why it translated over so well to the NBA, and he's one of the greatest mid-range shooters because this is all he had. So if you sit here and tell me all he had was mid-range and he excelled at that, it's hard for me not to believe that if he had the 3-point line coming up, he wouldn't excel at that as well.
Yeah, well, see, the thing is, and I know y'all know this, I'm just making a statement. I have to tell these guys because when we be on these other platforms talking sports, they're trying to apply today's basketball to yesterday. And I'm like, that was not the game they played back then. Today, they play outside in. Back then, they played the opposite way. It was inside out. Or if you were a perimeter player, you had to have that mid-range 1-2 dribble pull-up or able to get your shot off and create space in that high post elbow area because the paint was packed. So, yeah, you would either get the ball down to your big men, and then when they would try to collapse on that scoring area, they would incrementally move the ball back towards the guards to let them operate. But, see, they don't understand that because they didn't go back and watch that game with, I would say, an active eye. They just want to look at lowlights and, oh, we're done with it. I'm like, bro, y'all are sad, man. It's just sad.
No, it's really crazy. I was watching just jump shots by Jordan. And it's kind of like you kind of think the shit is fake after a while because you see him making that many in some of these videos, and it's not even clipped. Sometimes, like I watched was that the Lakers when he made like 12 field goals in a row?
13, 91,
13.
Yeah. That's still 13. A record, actually. Yeah.
But remember, everybody sit here and harps on LeBron versus Cleveland. I mean, LeBron versus Spurs. This was Jordan's first finals too.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hear about this was his first finals too versus a Lakers team that had experience that's been to the finals. This is his first time going there. So again, people try to use he played the Spurs and he was young. Young or not, your first time is your first time.
Hey, it's ironic because Magic Johnson was the same age as Tim Duncan. In 2007, Tim Duncan was 31. In 1991, Magic Johnson was 31.
This is what I'm saying.
Magic was second in MVP voting. I think Timmy was like 6th or 7th.
The 6 degrees of separation. If I'm wrong, please somebody correct me. It's not that far removed. Like Jordan played against Kareem. The same people that played against Jordan. You got the Kobe that played against Jordan. You got LeBron that played against Kobe. These players aren't really. It's not like you're talking about 50-year separation. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. All of these players. Again, Jordan was 1 year removed from playing against LeBron. So it's not like there's a great difference that these people try to say, the 90s was this. Dude, Kobe's from the 90s. Allen Iverson from the 90s. These are all guys that went up against those players that they try to clown. So if you by that logic, if you do the math, you're going to be downplaying every generation in a sense, if you want to go with that, if that makes any sense to y'all.
Robin, Nick, or Uncommon Sense, you got anything to say about all that?
No, that was good. Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. Don't have much to add.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Like I said, to me, this whole narrative that players have evolved so much, I'm like, humans don't evolve at that rate. I mean, even if you believe in evolution at all, like humans don't evolve at that rate. So, like he was saying, a lot of these players who people revere now, the Allen Iversons, the Kobe's, the Vince Carters, they were back then playing against MJ as well. So to think that somehow, these 90s players wouldn't translate to now is ridiculous. And again, like I said, to me, a lot of it has to do with mentality, which is why I feel like most of the 90s players would just mentally outweigh most of these guys today.
Yeah, yeah, that's something I've always said. Like, whenever they started saying the 90s was plumbers and cab drivers, like, I don't know, like, I understand that comes from like the whole Bob Cousy thing. You almost started a driver's ed school instead of going to the NBA. That, back in those days, guys might have had other financial opportunities that lended more revenue or income than the NBA at that time. But since like the 70s and 80s, right? Like, that's never been the best talent in the world, bar none, plays in the NBA. Yes, the international game has expanded a little bit, right? But I don't think it's to the degree that you say like, oh my God, this is just, light years better because they got this guy from Latvia and Luka comes from Slovenia, or whatever. I don't think it's like that. I don't think the difference is so great. Like you're saying, like, oh, well, nutrition and exercise has gotten so much better the last 20 years that these guys are they're not even human anymore. They're just a whole different thing, right? I don't buy into that either. It makes no sense.
Real fast.
Uncommon,
let me just say something real fast, and then if you or Robin want to go, I don't understand when people say, oh, these players of yesteryear had other businesses. Michael Jordan himself was involved with another business, the shoe business. Yep. Are you kidding me? Yep. Just because they go and they've owned plumbing businesses or electrician businesses, or you sell drinks like Shaq did, or shoes or whatever, how does that have to do with anything with your basketball game? It's nonsense. It's apples to oranges, or like Rex likes to say, apples to typewriters. Just because you make income in another way doesn't mean that you're doing that. And these guys were not plumbing while they were playing basketball across the country. Are you kidding me? Like, let's think about it for a second here. How can you go and do plumbing work every day while you're going across the country playing basketball? It makes no sense. Anyway, Robin or Uncommon Sense, you got anything to say?
Yeah, I'll just chime in real quick. It's the same thing you guys been saying, man. Listen, whenever we hear these people talk about the skills of these players today, I always ask these people to make videos and please explain to me what skills we're talking about, because more likely than not, they're talking about two aspects: the three-point shooting, which is prevalent, and the dribbling ability of these players. The dribbling, not the ball handling, the dribbling ability of these players. But once again, I challenge them on this because once again, in the 80s and the 90s, there were players, stretch fours, guys like Detlef Schrempf, guys like Sam Perkins, guys like Bill Laimbeer, who could shoot the three-point shot. The only difference was they only shot it 3-4 times a game. They didn't shoot it 10 or 8 times a game. So in essence, they had to be more efficient with these shots. You're only shooting 4 times. You have to make those shots. You can't be out here chucking up all these threes. So when we talk about the balance of the game from back in the day, especially the 90s, the balance, once the three-point line was being utilized at a little bit more of a higher volume, you saw the beautiful bounce, man, three-point specialists, man, right? We've seen these guys. There were also guys like Steph Curry's in the era. We had the Reggie Millers back in the day who would run guys off of screens all game long. And when we talk about the dribbling ability of the eras, we had the Kevin Johnsons, the Tim Hardaways, the Penny Hardaways, Michael Jordan's ball handling ability is excellent because once again, these guys had the fundamentals in those eras that are lacking today. Where are the post games in this era? That's a skill. Right? Even leadership is lacking in this era, which is a skill that people go to school to learn how to become better leaders. But in this era, they don't have that kind of stuff, right? So these are all the things we think about. And it goes back to the same thing that we hear when they tear down the eras back in the day. What do you often hear them say? Oh, like you guys just said, these guys back in the day were nobodies. But at the same time, they're going to sit there and tell us that Scottie Pippen was this great of a player. And yes, Scottie Pippen was an all-time great. But once again, I told you the praise is disingenuous because all they're doing is trying to take away from Michael Jordan's greatness by elevating Scottie Pippen to a realm he was never at. I grew up watching this stuff. Scottie Pippen was never that dude, man. He was not. He was not above Karl Malone or Hakeem Olajuwon or Shaquille O'Neal or David Robinson or Clyde Drexler or Reggie Miller or John Stockton or any of these other all-time greats that was in that. He was not above those guys, the Charles Barkleys. Scottie Pippen was a great player, but they're going to tell us that every one of those guys wasn't that great, but Scottie Pippen somehow was that great. It doesn't add up. I told you they can't have it both ways. They can't be garbage, but at the same time, Michael Jordan was 1-9 without Pippen because he was so dynamic. It doesn't add up, man. The guys in previous eras had the fundamentals, which is what they relied on. And the one thing we can't forget, guys, when we talk about this era today, it's the effort. One thing that I always remember watching growing up was the effort that these grown men played with that I do not see on a consistent basis in this era. The effort these guys gave on both ends of the court cannot be denied.
Yo, do y'all remember what Larry Johnson said back in the 90s when they played Pippen? I mean, when he played the Bulls? Do y'all remember that?
What?
Anybody?
Why? I don't know specifically.
No, go ahead. What did he say?
Yeah.
We lost him.
I think we lost him.
No, Larry Johnson didn't say nothing because he was scared.
Larry Johnson? He said to Pippen. He didn't say that to Jordan. He said to Pippen, Jordan gives all y'all guts over there. That's it. He's the reason the battery's in y'all back. But as it should, when you have, listen, I'm pretty good at ball, but I got this guy that's way better than me, and as good as I am, I know when it's time for my ass to look. Let me take a step back, and you do what you got to do. That's what.
Double A.
I'm pretty good. I could bust the average person's ass. I put my life.
Hey, Double A. Go check Steven Jackson on all the smoke when they were speaking on when Jordan came to practice, because they were, pretty much they weren't showing the effort like Sports and Fitness Rant said. And Jordan came out there, laced them up at 50 years old, and was giving them the business. He said DJ Augustine was out there shooting like Steph Curry. So no, what you saying is factual. When you have a guy that instills that confidence in you, you will play better because he's giving you that confidence with his presence out there. So I'm glad you said that. That was a good point.
Yeah, that's with anything, though. That's with anything. That's my point. That goes from basketball to work.
Double A.
Go ahead.
Real fast. So Nick, NMB Sports has to go. You have any last words on anybody? If you like what he had to say, go subscribe to his channel.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. Yeah, I've been MIA lately. I'll get back on the videos, so we'll do this more often.
Yeah, you also long video too, NMB. You also you can't give us that great breakdown after the debate and then just vanish on us like that.
I like to leave the people wanting a little more,
Nah. Well, don't take that damn long.
All right, I appreciate that, man.
So Aaron, do you have any last words? Man Down Sports had called in. Everyone had something to say about your take. Do you have any last words before Man Down Sports gets his time?
Nah. Just want to say salute to y'all. I got love for the page. Yo, don't give me the half an hour thing no more, man. That's too. I've been rolling with you I've been with y'all from the jump, man. But yeah, that's it. Just remember this, y'all. It's all about chips. No matter how much all these stats we put up and talk about the numbers, it's all because we're trying to get a championship. That's what it all comes down to. So say what you want about whatever. It comes down to the chip. That's what we play for. We can't minimize that. If that's the case, it shouldn't be a championship. We should be playing basketball to see who accumulates the most stats and everybody go home. We all know it's about chips at the end of the day. We all know the role that players play. So the Robert Horry thing, that could never work. We know the truth. If you watch sports, you know the truth. You know people's roles in this game. You know who's the leader. You know who leads to those chips. And if whoever's watching this, GOAT James Kingdom, if y'all are, remember, Jordan got 6 of them things. He's 6 for 6 with everything. That's all.
Hey, Double A, drop your email, bro.
All right, I got you. I'm gonna sit in the private joint.
All right,
I gotta go, guys.
Yep. All right. See you, Nick, and thank you, Aaron.
Thanks for calling in, man.
Yep. So how you doing, Man Down Sports? I know you we did a little introduction before, but did you want to just hang out, or do you have a question? I know you were in the chat about the super teams.
I think when I first commented, y'all was talking about the super teams, but y'all done moved on from that. So I didn't want to make y'all backtrack or nothing like that. But by the way, I've watched Uncommon since stuff plenty of times. I watch Michael Jordan fans are the best plenty of times, and I even watch sports and fitness rants plenty of times. Man, y'all pop up in my algorithm all the time. So whatever y'all doing with y'all channel is y'all doing good stuff. YouTube is pushing y'all out, man. So I just want to salute y'all. But when I dropped the super team concept or my theory or my definition of a super team, I think sports fitness and rants kind of misunderstood it. So I kind of wanted to clear it up a little bit. But what did you think I was saying when I said that a super team is 3 or more prime number one superstars? Or when I say number one, I mean guys that are proven to be able to carry a team or a franchise as the number one player. I think those guys is very few of those in the league. I think it's around 10 to 12 every year, give or take. So when you have 3 of those superstars on your team and when they're in their prime, I think that gives you a clear cut advantage. You don't even have to play, you don't even have to have great chemistry. You don't have to play great team basketball. If you got 3 superstars that are number ones, you can figure it out. And that gives you an advantage over every other team. So what did you misunderstand about that?
I think with the whole thing that was misunderstood is I didn't even hear that you said that. So as far as I was concerned, I heard all-stars. That's what I heard. Someone having 3 all-stars on the team. I didn't hear nothing about no number ones, guys who could lead a squad, give them the ball and let them do their thing. So this must obviously be some kind of miscommunication or a misrepresentation of what you said or meant to say.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. I figured that because I didn't. When you said all stars, I was like, I didn't even say all stars. But yeah,
because as far as I'm concerned, we have similar thoughts. We have similar opinions on basketball. And as far as those things, I've seen some of your stuff on my algorithm as well. So, like I said, I don't think that it. See, my whole problem with the super team, what we were talking about earlier, is how people will now just use the term super team to talk about teams from previous eras now. Now we're labeling every team that's ever had existence with, let's say, all-stars or Hall of Famers on them. All of a sudden now they're a super team because the connotation for me, as far as my own personal thought, when I hear super team, it's a negative connotation. For me, it's a negative. Because when I think about that, I think about LeBron James and the teams coming together inorganically and guys plotting behind the scenes and guys trying to stack the deck in their favor because they don't want to work and go through the grind. So when I hear them call the teams of the 80 Celtics a super team or the 96, 97, 98 Bulls, and they label them a super team, that is not cool with me because to me, I don't remember hearing these things growing up because super teams were never mentioned like that. These were called great teams. They were teams that were great because of a great player that got the most out of the guys around him. When we think about the Celtics, for example, to me, Kevin McHale's not a number one guy. He was a sixth man, right? Yes, he started a bunch of games. He's an all-time great player. But like you said, you're talking about number ones. So for me, I don't consider the Celtics to be a super team because they came together in a more basic way. To me, Robert Parrish is not a number one guy. Was he winning championships or leading a team to the finals before he came to the Celtics? No, he wasn't. The same thing with the Bulls in the late 90s. They'll say, oh, they were a super team because of what? There's 4 Hall of Famers. They say Tony Kukoc, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Dennis Rodman. And although that may be true, we must keep things into what? Perspective and put the context behind it. Tony Kukoc is literally a Hall of Famer because of his European career, not because of his NBA career. Anyone who knows NBA basketball knows this. So when we try to highlight the Hall of Famers to make them super teams, it's not the same thing.
Let me ask you a question.
Some of these other teams.
Let me ask you a question. If we take my definition and apply it across the board to every team that has been suspected to be a super team, and you take it to the, because I don't even go past and go to the older generation because I didn't live through seeing those players. Like, I heard you mention earlier what Wade was. It wasn't you, it was somebody else who mentioned what Wade was before he joined LeBron and what Bosh was. We know that from knowledge because we was watching them play in that present time versus somebody that was younger back then that didn't watch them play. All they got to go off of is what they hear on ESPN or what they can Google, and they probably don't think Bosh was that dude, right? So it's kind of hard to them navigate that same way. I don't look at the Boston Celtics back then and try to apply my definition to them, but if I did, how many number ones was on that team? Just Bird?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
Well, wait, DJ, but he was later in his year though. Because
you think he was a number one? You think?
Well,
what do you mean by number? What do you mean by number one?
Yeah, he wasn't a number one.
Remember I say it's only 10 to 12 legit superstars that are number ones that can carry a franchise successfully, right? So those would be. I mean, I think Reggie Miller was able to do it in his prime. I think Jordan, Barkley, all those guys are prime superstars, number ones, right?
I don't think DJ was a top 12 player.
No,
I mean, he was a Finals MVP, won a championship with Gus and all that. But
Gus was the number one. He just had. I think DJ had a series like Iguodala. He just had the mismatch, and he just played out of his mind. So
he wasn't a legit number one. But let's say he was. That's two.
That's two. Yeah,
what was it?
Yeah, I see your point.
No,
Was
right.
it
So
three?
if you apply your logic, you're on the money with this. If you're gonna see, but this is the thing though. This is where the education becomes, and I'm not saying to you, for you, but for people like you said who don't know, maybe they didn't watch it or whatever the case may be, for them to consider a number one. Who knows what they're different? People think Scottie Pippen is a number one right now. That's the problem. So they're trying to pump Scottie Pippen up now. This is what I'm saying. When I was growing up, Scottie Pippen was nowhere near the Reggie Millers, the John Stocktons, the Karl Malones, the Barkleys, the David. But now they keep trying to tell me that Scottie Pippen was the best all-around basketball player in 1994 when Michael Jordan left. And I keep trying to tell you or tell them, how is he a greater all-around basketball player than Hakeem Olajuwon or Shaquille O'Neal or Charles Barkley or David Robinson? When did this happen? So
he wasn't, but he was able to prove that he could lead a successful team as a number one when Michael Jordan retired the first time. He was in the MVP discussion. He got his team.
He played with 3 All-Stars on the Bulls, though. They had 3 All-Stars that season. And once again, these are the residuals of playing with a Michael Jordan. You also have Phil Jackson there, who many people will argue did his best coaching job in that season. They had great game plans. They played a great team ball. That takes away nothing from Scottie Pippen. But look at his numbers across the board. When Michael Jordan left, what they try to tell us now is Michael Jordan suppressed Scottie Pippen so much because he shot the ball so much. So they want us to believe, or people to believe, that if Michael Jordan wasn't there hogging the ball, Scottie Pippen could have averaged 30 points a game and be that guy. He wasn't that guy. He was never the leader. Yes, they made the playoffs. They were still a great team, and Scottie Pippen led them there. But what happened when it mattered most? Because he was not a number one. When they needed a basket, they called on Tony Kukoc. In Game 7, where was Scottie Pippen? He was not there. But what do they keep telling us? Oh, Pippen got robbed because of a bad call. So did the Detroit Pistons in the 88 finals. No one brings these things up. There have been many missed calls or bad calls in NBA's history, but they'll give Scottie Pippen that crutch to lift him up into a realm. And they tell me now on my channel that Scottie Pippen led the Chicago Bulls to the Eastern Conference Finals in 1994.
Yeah, they wasn't paying attention. They got to the semifinals. Yeah,
right. But that's what I'm saying. This is where the education and people need to learn, man, the history of the game. Scottie Pippen was never a number one. Him leading the Bulls that one season, that was great for him. But what happened the following season when Horace Grant left? All of a sudden they were floundering around.
No, you're right.
Big part of that team.
I agree, and they forget about that second season where there was almost a non-playoff team until Jordan came back for those.
Barely 3 games over 500.
That was on the struggle bus. But I will get the only thing I disagree with you, Sports and Rants, or Sports and Fitness, is I think I would give credit to Pippen for being a number one, a successful number one. I mean, he was in the MVP discussion. He played phenomenal basketball. He was definitely probably a top 12 player in the league at that time.
You talking about 94?
Yeah.
Okay.
Real fast, Uncommon Sense. Were you trying to say something?
Yeah. I was just gonna say I agree with Man Down as far as that 94 season, but I think the reason, again, kind of like what Sports and Fitness Rants was saying, I think coming off that leadership of Michael Jordan is what got Scottie Pippen to that point.
Yeah.
That it's kind of like when BJ Armstrong had that great game when BJ was on the Hornets. It was like he was still running off residuals from playing with Michael, but it's like they couldn't sustain that, which is why I think, in the 95 season, Pippen fell off. And like you said, that's when he's begging for Jordan to come back on the camera. So, and I think that's just a testament to Jordan's great leadership, is that, he had everybody playing with a certain amount of confidence.
Yeah.
I wanted to follow up that point too, because I give Pippen credit where it's due. Like I don't start to exaggerate it, because 94, he finally got what he wanted, right? But then let's move on to 95, and I think that's when reality set in. And it's a phrase that I like. It's called "heavy is the head that wears the crown." And he realized that, no, I'm not really built for this. But I also wanted to add in, when Pippen was dealing with his turmoil with the front office, Jordan had actually got the Bulls to 28-11. And this is, because Pippen only played 40, what was it? He missed 38 games, so he played 44. One of those two. But what I noticed in that whole ordeal was from The Last Dance. Okay, so Jordan was able to right the ship and get the Bulls on par to be well over 500, as to where Pippen, when he was in that role, like you said earlier, yeah, they were struggling just to keep their head above water. And that's what a lot of people don't want to include when they try to, I would say, over-exaggerate Scottie Pippen's contribution, because, again, yes, he was a great player, but it was the sustainability, as Uncommon Sense said, due to playing with the great Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I agree, man, and I do believe that people are using Pippen as some type of gateway to be disingenuous and diminish Michael Jordan for whatever reason. But I don't respond to that by going to the other end of the extreme and then taking him away from the credit he deserves as a number one. I mean, I think he's successful, but even with my definition of 3 number ones in their prime, the Bulls never had that. You know, at the most they had a dynamic duo with Pippen and Jordan, which is normal. You got Shaq and Kobe, you got Stockton and Malone, you got Peyton Kemp. Like, so dynamic duos was a thing then. But big threes and super teams and 3 superstars in their prime that are proven number ones, that's something that I haven't seen until I seen Boston do it with Ray Allen, KG, and Paul Pierce. And then Miami did it with Wade, Bosh, and LeBron. And then if you want to elevate Klay Thompson to a level of a superstar when he was in his prime with KD, Steph, and Klay, that would make a super team as well. But I don't think you know, I wouldn't argue it if you say there was a super team, but I really don't see Klay in that light. And then the OKC Thunder with Harden, Westbrook, and Kevin Durant, that was before Harden and Westbrook's prime, so they wasn't in their prime either. So being past your prime or before your prime, I wouldn't constitute you as a super team, depending on what the superstars are in their career.
Yeah,
Can I say something real quick? I want to ask Man Down a quick question. So I hear what you're saying here, man. And like I said, man, you on the money with some of this stuff, man. The only thing I say when we talk about the Steph Curry, the Kevin Durant thing, see, once again, we're talking about the Boston Celtics in 08. They're 3 number ones, absolutely. Ray Allen, when he first came in the league, he was that guy, man. We all know Paul Pierce was carrying the Celtics for years, and we all know what KG could do when he was in his prime. The problem is for some of those guys like a Paul Pierce and a Ray Allen, they were never really MVP contenders. So when you think about a Kevin Durant and a Steph Curry together, whether or not Klay Thompson is a superstar or not, that absolutely makes them a super team. You're talking about 2 of the primetime players, 2 of the probably greatest players of their era at the same time on the same team in MVP shape. To me, that absolutely institutes a super team. There's got to be a caveat for 2 superstar MVP levels playing. But I want to ask you this. When we talk about Scottie Pippen, you said he's a number one for 1994. I'm not with you on the number one Scottie Pippen. Uncommon Sense agrees with you on that. I'm not with it. Once again, let me ask you this. In 1995, the following season now, right? Scottie Pippen's coming off of his number one campaign, right? You said he was, I think, number 3 in MVP of voting. So was Jermaine O'Neal back in the day. Do we consider him a number one? I don't consider Jermaine O'Neal number one.
That's a good question.
Let's think about this.
Okay, go ahead.
In Orlando, in the second round in 1995, to me, I did a video on this. That was Scottie Pippen's opportunity to carry Michael Jordan against the Orlando Magic that season. Michael Jordan was really good. He wasn't Michael Jordan in that series, but if you watch the games, he was still very good. He had some turnover problems. Scottie Pippen could have been the number one guy. He should have been the number one guy in that series, but he wasn't able. He actually folded up in that series and actually played down from the previous series against the Hornets. So I asked you, where was Scottie Pippen to be the number one at that point?
I obviously not there. I mean, you're not gonna get an argument for me. I mean, I don't want to make an excuse, man, but playing subpar basketball or barely above par basketball for the whole season, and then having Michael Jordan come out of retirement to try to save the season, but he not be. I mean, I interviewed Corey Blunt. I asked him, man, what do you think Jordan was when he came back, man? He said, I think Jordan was 55% of himself. You know, so having Jordan be that physically and with his timing and you know, with his rust and then chemistry with the team, on top of in his mind he's still trying to be Michael Jordan. That's very hard for a team to navigate. And I don't know if Pippen really wanted to step on Jordan's shoes. I don't even think Jordan would allow him to step on his toes. You know, Jordan was going to get his 30 shots up regardless, and they was going to play the way they usually play. So I mean, I wouldn't tax him too much with that, but you make a good point. I ain't got no argument against it.
See, the thing is, he was in basketball. He wasn't in basketball condition. He was still coming off baseball. That's why
sure.
I think a lot of people see when they came back in 95, 96, like he pretty much showed, okay, now I got a full season under my belt. It's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Real fast, 'cause I see you there, T Ray. Man down. We got T Ray and Leon here. You're welcome to stay on, and I invite you if you'd like to come on again. If you like this show, and you'd like to come in on Saturday afternoons, I can email you if you'd like to come on, and we could talk about it later if you're interested, or if this is a one-time thing, that's cool too.
No, I put my email in the chat.
Hey man, Dan, I follow you too, man. Keep doing your good work, bro. You got some great content.
Yeah, for real, yo.
Appreciate
Much respect to you, man, for coming out, man. For real, man. I seen your stuff too, man. For real.
You're welcome to hang out too if you'd like for the rest of the show. We're going to be shutting this off in the next 20 minutes or so.
Okay.
But I just wanted to put that out there to publicly invite you if you want to come on the panel sometime in the future.
Okay, sounds good, bro.
Awesome. Okay. Do you have your email on your channel, or there it is? Okay. All right. I'll save it. But T Ray, what do you got to say? Welcome to the channel. And do you have any question for the panel or anybody specifically on the panel?
Well, I follow everybody here, man. Man down, sports fitness, uncommon. Man, y'all a breath of fresh air for a mid to late 40s guy like myself that grew up in the real era of sports, specifically basketball. I like that the narrative. It's up to us to change the the narrative of our era and the era even before us, because we saw the greats, we saw the best that the game has to offer. We saw, with the rules being what they were as opposed to what they are now. And I'm just glad that you guys are, upholding the craft like you are. So I'll start off by saying that. One thing about Scottie Pippen, what I always like to throw around to people that like to uplift him a little higher than they should. Scottie Pippen played after he left Chicago. He played with the Rockets for that year, and I won't count that against him because that was a hard transition for all three of the players involved. I believe with Barkley and Elijah Wan. As far as them, coming together that way, I think they might have needed another year or so. But with the toxicity between Barkley and Pippen, I don't think it would have worked. But he gets no pass at all when he went to Portland, and he played on arguably the greatest ensemble of talent, 1 through 12, on that 2000 Portland team, and them not being able to make something out of that. I mean, I know they ran into the Lakers and and Kobe and Shaq, but you got to realize they was down 3-1 in that series and came back, and they had all the momentum going into Game 7 and had a 15, 16-point lead in the fourth quarter. Pippen, all he had to do was be, a calming force, or be able to, to distribute or make certain plays, here or there, and they should have been able to get up out of there and then make it to the finals. So that right there told me everything I needed to know about Scottie Pippen being a one or being a leader.
He wasn't the one on that Portland team, man.
No. I'm not saying he was a one. I'm just saying that him being a leader, I'll say that him being a leader and being able to corral, that type of talent, or being a central figure, and being able to, he should have, with all the experience that he had, he should have been able to, do something.
That's why they brought him in. You right on the money, man. That's why he was brought in there to get them over the hump. Remember, they went to the Western Conference Finals the year before he got there. That's why they brought Pippen in, for the leadership. Yep. You on the money.
Yep. They got swept. I think San Antonio.
He was able to display that though, T. Ray. He displayed great leadership, man. They played phenomenal the time he was there, and he played great and showed great leadership. He just ran into a buzzsaw, number one, and he also ran into a team that the NBA was really behind. And we think as much as I love Kobe and much as I love Shaq and all that stuff, we got to be honest. When we see the NBA interfere and manipulate certain games and series, we got to be honest about that, man. The Kings got cheated against the Lakers, and so did the Portland Trailblazers.
That's true, but you know what? Also, these teams they also had opportunities too, because missing free throws, turning the ball over, and things of that nature. Yeah, that's out of the referee's hands. That's something where you gotta and like what was it? Evan Turner said, when you playing a team that's favored and they got things going their way, you can't have a 2-point game. You got to win by 13, 15. You got to go out here and execute on your end. So,
yeah, but do you really want to tax Pippen for that? I mean, that was a successful season. They got
I kind of do
because
if you go back and look at that season, they was neck and neck with the Lakers all the way up until like the last 3 weeks of the season.
So you say they underachieved, and that's on Pippen.
They was. I think they both was right there. They was tied for the division and everything, and then the Lakers, they overtook them. They went 6-7.
Yo, man, down, man. Yo, you and Scottie Pippen friends, man. You give Scottie Pippen a lot of passes right now, man. Come on, man. You gotta be honest, man.
No,
Scottie Pippen was brought in there to help the Blazers
man.
go over the hump. Come on, man. You gotta put some onus on this man. What leadership are you talking about? He went to the Western Conference Finals before he got there.
No,
Pippen.
I got a question when y'all finish.
No, but
real fast, Trey or T-Ray. JB was here, super chatted. Robin, the Sports and Fitness Rants, the Terminator or the Road Warrior? Who do you pick?
Oh man, I'm going with the Road Warrior. Let's go, baby. Mel Gibson, baby.
Let a hoop cod say something real fast.
What you said, bro, that's you speaking some facts because like when you start like really deep diving into the NBA, they do have certain narratives at play. I wanted to ask you though, now that the Blazers went up 3-1, like you said. Now
the Lakers were up 3-1.
No, the Blazers when they played them in the West. Oh yeah, the Lakers. My bad. Yeah. But my thing is, just like they played Detroit in 2004, right? Like I ain't gonna lie, I'm gonna keep it a buck. Watching that series back then, I'm like, man, the Lakers finna demolish them, right? But then I see how Chauncey went out there and like. I believe that man played when you say a flawless game, I can't remember one time that he made a bad pass, took a bad shot, or made a misstep that might have cost them like a point or a possession, right? And I'm saying it just to say this. I do know that the NBA do got certain things at play, like it's certain teams they want to see like be successful. But if a team can come in there and outperform them, it's kind of like, hey, okay, let's let it play out. But I wanted to ask you, do you believe that the Blazers, had the right mindset? Because I think they were super talented. I just think their IQ wasn't there. They would have had the same IQ like the Pistons. Hey,
they brought Pippen in for it, bro.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to reiterate. That's why they brought Pippen in.
Yeah,
he's supposed to be the difference maker.
Right. I'm looking at it like, because I think those are two dynamics at play. I'm looking at it like, well, damn, if Detroit can get it done, well, hell, why the hell the Blazers can't get it done? Like,
with the talent,
it was a couple of things. Detroit played a different brand of basketball. Plus, Shaq and Kobe were at their worst as far as their chemistry and relationship. It was deteriorated so bad. And then Shaq was at his heaviest. Shaq admitted that he was over 400 pounds back then. And Larry Brown was a smart coach who involved Shaq in every high screening role. He couldn't handle that. And off made baskets or rebounds, Rasheed Wallace. Remember, Rasheed Wallace, track was his first sport. He was a track star.
Yeah.
And he always ran like a deer. And Ben Wallace and Rasheed Wallace was running full sprints from rim to rim. Yeah. That was the game plan. So that game plan was just perfect for the Lakers at that time of turmoil and that time Shaq was overweight and all that stuff. And then when you look at the Portland series, Kobe was just reaching his prime. Shaq was still in his prime of primes. He was still the diesel. He wasn't, he didn't have a lot of body fat. He could still run and jump. He was still a force. And, and the slow guy that was getting picked on defense back then was Sabonis with his bad knees and his 350-pound self. So that was, it was just a whole different thing. Detroit was just a perfect storm. And they ran them boys off the floor, man.
Real fast, two things. Derek super chats, Robin again. He says, love watching you guys on Sundays, better than ESPN and Fox Sports. What do you got to say about that, Robin?
Yo, he's right on money, man, because we got my man Down Sports here. We had Angry Old Hoops on. We got my man Uncommon Sense. We got the Hoop Guy. We had NNB on here. We got people calling in. Yo, people are starting to stand up. The real NBA fans are starting to stand up, man, for the facts, man. Like I said, holding the standard. So shout out to everybody out there, man. Much respect. Thank you.
Absolutely. Uncommon Sense, do you have anything to say about what's being talked about? I know you've been quiet for a while.
Yeah, I agree a lot with what Man Down is saying. But honestly, like me, I feel like just because like I'm so into uh I think great players is half your skills and half leadership. Especially if we're talking about the best of the best. And it's saying like if going back to the Scottie Pippen thing, it's like I think Scottie was lacking on both. So again, it's I probably give Pippen less credit than a lot of people because I feel like Michael Jordan was totally responsible for Scottie Pippen being a top 50 player. And the whole Portland series that you're talking about, I agree with some of the, NBA narrative stuff and that, but at the end of the day, and I know Scottie Pippen, I guess, was older but at the end of the day, I feel like Scottie Pippen's leadership should have carried that team over the hump against the Lakers. And I feel like Scottie is just not a leader like that. And, so yeah, I just feel like Scottie's not a leader like that.
He might not be, but that don't mean he's not a number one because there's a lot of number ones that are capable number ones, but that just don't have that leadership ability. AD is one of them. Paul George is another one. So does that mean they're not a number one? No, it just means they're not on a level of the guys that we got at the tippy top, like Michael Jordan, Kobe, Kawhi, guys of that nature, man. They just number ones, but on a lesser level. There's levels to it. So I mean, Scott, I still, like I said, I still give him credit for being a capable number one. He showed us that he can lead a team for a full season as a number one when he was in his prime. I give him number one credit, but for the guys that don't give him number one credit, I'm fine with that. I would settle with him being probably the best number two we've ever seen. Name a number two that's better.
Well, I tell you, but I got a question. I got a question. Hold on.
Because was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar number two in the 80s with Magic Johnson? We can say he was a great number two. See, this is where it gets slippery when we talk about these things. Listen, Man Down, I respect you. I'm gonna subscribe to your channel, man. I like your stuff, man.
Hold on, man. You ain't already subscribed. Hold on, wait. You're not already subscribed, big dog?
No, man. Listen, man. I'm gonna subscribe to your channel, man.
Lord have mercy, man.
No, but listen, yo, I can't give a Scottie Pippen being the number one. My only problem with this is that Scottie Pippen only did it for one season. That's not proving it. This is why I'll never put him above a Reggie Miller, so to speak, let's say, who people believe is a lesser player, Reggie Miller. But Reggie Miller was 10 toes down in Indiana for 15, 20 seasons, man. He was there leading them every single season to the Eastern Conference Finals, to the NBA Finals, man. So we can't put Scottie Pippen with the guys who did it for years and years and years. But one thing we must think about the 2000 Portland Trailblazers, like it was mentioned earlier, they came back from being down 3-1. So essentially, they had won 2 games in a row. The series was tied 2-2. All the momentum was on their favor. Scottie Pippen, all he had to do was get a basket. They were up by almost 20 points in the fourth quarter. He just couldn't get one basket.
He ain't a basket getter, though. He's a facilitator that's very athletic and highly skilled, but he's not a basket getter mentality like that.
What about a charge? What about a charge or a steal? He could have did something.
I just wanted to add.
I tell you, hold on 1 second. I'll tell you who would have did something in comparison. If you want to compare these two players, Jimmy Butler would have figured out a way to do something.
I just want to add something with Pippen. I think he is one of the greatest number 2 guys, but I would not say he's the greatest. Because you could talk about Kareem and Oscar Robertson. You could talk. Somebody mentioned John Havlicek with Bill Russell. They won 8 together. Robin just mentioned Magic and Kareem. You could talk Shaq and Kobe. You could talk Tim Duncan, David Robinson. Now, I think some of them you can take out of that. Some of them are just my personal preferences, but I think that individually they were better players than Scottie Pippen. But for the greatness aspect, I think Scottie Pippen is probably a top 5 number 2. But I don't think he's the best number 2. But I have a difference between that. I differentiate best and greatest.
I agree with you on that. But this is why I said it that way. Because if we're not giving him credit for a number 1, that means he's 100% a legit number 2. Those guys that you named were not number 2s. They were number 1s that was de facto number 2s because they just happened to have a better number 1 on their squad. So
I
I
got what
don't
you're
look at Kobe
saying,
as a
yeah.
number 2, but I'm talking about people that are legit number 2s like Stockton. He was a legit number 2 for his whole career behind Malone, and when Malone was the number 1.
I think he was the number 1 also in that perspective. I think they were both number 1s. Yeah.
You think Stockton can lead a team as the best player and successfully better than Pippen could? You think Stockton was a number 1, but Pippen wasn't?
There's no sample size to actually judge that, but I think I think he could.
You think
So
so?
I think as far as that goes, I believe that John Stockton is closer to Karl Malone than Scottie Pippen to Michael Jordan. I think that's an obvious statement that we're making right there.
Oh, that's tough.
So,
That's
I'll
tough.
tell you right now, I would rank Stockton over Scottie Pippen in the 90s. I would rank him above it, but that's me. Maybe you have Pippen over Stockton in that rankings, but for me, I'm putting Stockton above Scottie Pippen because, like I said, to me, I believe Stockton and Malone are closer to each other. See, yo, man, down. When we talk about duos, right? You think Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan are the greatest duo, right? Most people agree with that. But it's not because Scottie Pippen was so great and so close to Michael Jordan. It's because Michael Jordan is so great. So when we think about a Kobe Bryant and a Shaquille O'Neal, people will consider them closer, right? They're 2 great players. But for some reason, that duo is not better than Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Why? Because of Michael Jordan, not because of Scottie Pippen.
No, I'm with you on that, man. I'm gonna have to go back and really think about everything that everybody said, man. Because, man,
You got me thinking too, man. Yo, much respect to you for real, man.
Stockton possibly number 1. That's tough. You know, the only point guard that I would give credit for being a number 1 and leading the team successfully back then was probably J. Kidd. He got the Nets to two or three straight Eastern Conference Finals and got him to the finals twice, I think. J. Kidd actually did it. Stockton we don't have like you said, we don't have a sample size of Stockton doing it.
You know, I'm not saying that Stockton is a number 1 as far as like leading a team to like a championship. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, to me, when we think about the duos, I think that him and Karl Malone are closer than Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan. That's my
okay. Oh yeah. I agree with you on that.
T-Ray, thank you for calling in. Do you have any last words for everybody? We got Leon here, and then after that, we're going to get out of here.
Well, yeah, I kind of want to touch on something that I like to speak on a lot. I'm big on like hustle plays. I'm a guy that, you know, it's certain things that players do that separate them, especially being great players. And I look at a guy like Clyde Drexler. I look at a guy like you know, that he don't get a lot of credit for what he did as far as on the other end of the ball. He was real good playing passing lanes. He was very good on offensive boards. Today, you don't see a lot of that. You don't see a lot of players hitting the boards. And I throw this stat around online a lot where, like, you know, to bring up LeBron James, he's a terrible offensive rebounder. I think this year he just passed Michael Jordan on the offensive rebounding list. Jordan played 13 whole seasons, and this man played 21. You know, that says a lot about the hustle that a player has and the drive they have. He'll never pass Larry Bird, and Larry Bird only played 13 years. He could barely jump over a phone book. So I'm real big on that. I'm real big on, you know,
lead a team. Like, what can you do besides scoring or having the ball in your hands to help your team?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I just noticed that Hoop God was still here. He was saying he had to go like 10 minutes ago. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Hoop God, do you have any last words before you get out of here? My bad, dude. I forgot. I was letting it go on. You there, Hoop God?
He probably did leave.
He's doing stuff in the background. You know him, man. Let me get together.
All right, Hoop God, if you can hear me, I'll give you a second. If not, I'll just leave you on. But yeah.
Yeah, I got to run too, fellas.
All
right. We went deep today, man.
Yep, absolutely.
It was a good panel.
Yeah, absolutely. Leon had left anyway, so I guess let's just do our goodbyes and our plugs right now. Robin, thank you for coming. You have any Sports and Fitness Ranch? You have any last words?
No. Once again, man, thanks to everybody in the chat, man. I see some idiots in the chat as usual, man. Some perfect dude. He said a bunch of nonsense the entire, live stream. But other than that, man, shout out to everybody in the chat, man. Yo, man, down. Thanks for coming through, man, and blessing us, man, on the live stream. It's your first time coming through, man. It was nice, meeting you, man, and chatting with you. Uncommon Sense, man. Much respect for you coming through again. All the people who called in, man. Hoop God, NNB, and Dart. Once again, Michael Jordan fans are the best, man. Yo, once again, man, you know how we do it on this channel, man.
Absolutely. Uncommon sense. What do you guys say?
Yeah, I just tell everybody, everybody in the chat, keep supporting channels like this. Please keep sharing, you know, and because I feel like, again, you got to support the media that's actually telling you the truth, that's actually giving you some honesty. So, like I said, I follow everybody here on the panel. Man down, I've been following you for quite a while. But yeah, so keep supporting and keep showing up. Appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for having me on. And I'll catch you all next time.
Yeah, for
awesome. Hoop God, one last chance. Are you there? All right, man down sports. What do you got to say?
Hey man, thanks for inviting me on, man, and thanks for being a good host and all that stuff, man. It was a good panel. I appreciate everybody that was on here. I'm sub to all of y'all. If I'm not sub to all of y'all, I will be after this. But my question though is I'm looking at this restream thing, and it kind of look kind of I don't know. It's kind of I use StreamYard, man. Is restream better than StreamYard?
I think so, and let me tell you why. Because all of us, well, Uncommon Sense tried to do it, but he had an issue with it. Robin,
I know what that issue is now.
Okay, so what we're able to do on Restream is that it allows you to restream. I'm plugging Restream right now. It allows you to restream if you do a membership to it, even if you don't do a membership to it, if you're hosting it to multiple channels. So, for instance, Robin is. I think you joined through Robin's channel. He's streaming through his channel and he gets a copy of the show onto his page. So it enables him to get super chats instead of it all coming on the mine. Uncommon Sense on a sidebar, Uncommon Sense. I'll send you this video after all of this. But you have the option to restream. And then for me, I think it's a great idea because for one, more people get to see it. Everyone gets the ability to get super chats, and it also promotes everyone else's channels. And I think it's just a good way to just get the show out there.
Okay.
And that's why I started using it. I know with StreamYard, I think you could do one with a membership or something like that. Another one, which is, not it in my opinion, but let me just put it that way.
Okay.
So, and I like, there's a lot of stuff you could do with this. Like you could put, like I got the crying Michael Jordan head, I could put that up here, amongst other things. I can go and just, there's a lot of things you can do with this. So I like it. So if you're interested, I would check it out if I were you, especially if you, I've seen your show a couple times and I've seen some of your panel members, but I don't recognize them with having, if they do have their own outlets, but I think that'd be a good way to just promote your show whenever you do it as well. If you have other guys like that, just in my opinion.
Sounds good. Appreciate it, bro. Yeah, but that's it. That's all I had.
Awesome. And I want to thank you all for coming because it's always great. We had Uncut Hoops come through the chat earlier. I don't know if you're still on, but you're always welcome to come on in the future. Angry Old Hoops might be here next week. He's been here a few times if you're interested in seeing him too. But yeah, again, subscribe and like all the videos on these guys' channels. Sports Fitness Rants, Uncommon Sense. Hoop God has some stuff. And then Man Down Sports, of course. NNB Sports, who was here earlier. Check them all out. It was an awesome show, gentlemen. And I can't wait till next week. And for everyone, Michael Jordan fans are the best.
There you go.